Hey, what's going on, everyone? It's Wednesday night, and it's BRAP. We're back. Got a lot to talk about tonight. I tell you what, I think we're eating well as gamers. I think it's safe to say that Nintendo had their Direct today, this morning, and then we have the Final Fantasy 16 reviews, which just released, or should have released, which the embargo was up this morning, so we got to read about Final Fantasy 16 and what the critics had to say about that game. And then we have some Xbox-related news that we'll discuss here as well. Xbox price increase. Imagine that. We'll talk about that again here in a little bit. Big shout out to everyone in the live chat. Do me a quick favor. Let's drop the link here. Please retweet it or share it on your favorite social media platform. We do have a special guest with me. A first-time guest, actually. We have Button Basher Gaming, or Basherus, as he goes by. Basher, welcome to BRAP.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Happy to have you on. First-time guest, so appreciate the time and look forward to discussing video games with you. I know you are a fan of gaming and actually work in the industry, so it's great to have you on and appreciate
Don't say anything.
Yeah, no, I won't. So, but yeah, no, great to have you on. And then also we have Game Logic with us as well. What's going on, Game Logic?
How much, man? How are you guys?
Good, man. Just like I said, man, it's Wednesday. It's I gotta say, man, I we'll talk about the Nintendo Direct, but it's great being a multi-platform owner. I'll just leave it at that for right now. It's this has been a really good year, I think, so far, and yeah, and we talked about it a lot on this podcast, but anyhow, so. Geez, Kratopsy, come on, man.
He says I bash butts.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, but anyhow, so Basher, let me get a little bit of your gaming history here. He's your first time guest here. How long have you been playing video games for? Many of us on the panel have been doing it for a very long time. I think I've been gaming for like 40 plus years. But what about yourself? What got you into gaming? A particular game, maybe? And how long have you been doing it for?
What got me into gaming? Well, first of all, I'm 39 years old, so I'm on the older side of the spectrum. I got into gaming. First system was a Nintendo NES. My father bought it for me, and it's been quite the journey since there. Sega Genesis really was like my up and coming, where I got really addicted to it, and then Killer Instinct, one of my favorite fighting games on N64.
Oh yeah,
and I just loved that whole series. And then eventually my mom bought me a PlayStation with Final Fantasy VII and Resident Evil OG original titles on there. And it was just like ridiculous after that, like just hooked like nobody's business. So yeah, been gaming for quite some time. I actually got into the industry not through gaming, but through information technology, so through IT. I'm a IT ops lead for Turn 10 Gaming. And yeah, I feel blessed to be able to have that role and take that role on. And but at the same time, being a gamer, I mean, that was one of the biggest things that they looked at when I was brought on board, was like, hey, are you a gamer? Do you like video games? Are you passionate about it? Do you care about the products that we make? Do you care about all that? And yeah, I do wholeheartedly. I am a PlayStation gamer at heart. I was an huge Xbox fan, but I'm just a fan of gaming overall. Like, I don't really have a preference per se, but as I tend to lean more towards story-driven content, so that's where Sony kind of grasped me.
Yeah, it's interesting. You brought up the interview process where they're asking about the love for gaming. Actually, very similar experience. I actually interviewed for ZeniMax Media, Bethesda Softworks, for an internal position there, and that's actually one of the things they asked me. Like, do you follow the gaming industry? Do you enjoy gaming? Do you play video games?
Mhm.
And one of the things that they wanted was somebody who actually enjoyed gaming, because it was important from a cultural fit to have someone who understood the business, appreciated the business, understood what they were doing, what they were creating, had an appreciation for the art form, and was a fan of it. And I remember that them sharing stories to me in the interview process where they had hired individuals who didn't really care about gaming. And I think one of the stories they shared with me was an individual who was no longer with the company. They were having some kind of I don't know, it was kind of like internal like launch reveal of a title one of the studios was working on, but the person made a comment like, "What's the big deal? Like, why is this so important?" So
Yeah.
yeah, you just can't have that. But also, one of the things that they said to me was, and I've never heard this phrase used ever in an interview, except for a gaming company, of course, was that look, hey, we want people that are gamers, but we also don't want fanboys here. We want people who understand they need to come to work and get the job done. So I was like, oh,
Yeah.
okay. So I've never heard that word fanboys used in an interview. So that was kind of funny.
Well, does this audience know, BRAP, that you were an Xbox Live beta tester?
I don't know. Maybe. For those who don't know, I was an Xbox Live beta tester 20-something years ago. I upgraded my I'll share the story again. I upgraded my internet. I had like 56K mode. I think I had AOL at the time. God, I remember AOL. Jeez, that seems like yesterday.
Oh, yeah, the fried eggs. Fried egg sound?
Yeah, I had AOL and, oh, man. Yes. I remember those AOL Messenger. And anyhow, so I upgraded my dial-up 56K modem to broadband internet just so that I could get the Xbox Live beta program. And the rest is history. I never looked back after that. So, anyhow.
Yeah.
But
that's cool though that you had an interview with ZeniMax and all that. That's awesome.
Yeah, no, it was cool. It was my only complaint, and I've shared this story with Logic before, is that the interview process took a long time. I thought it was like I think at one point I'd gone through like interview number 4 and like, oh, we want you to interview with one more person. I'm like, what? Why? Like come on. I get like wanting to make sure that you hire someone. Cultural fit was very big for ZeniMax. My understanding was that they had really good tenure there. You saw people who started their careers like, as in AP and now are like, assistant controllers. So
yeah,
it was very much that, and so that need to find that cultural fit was very important. But I also felt like it was like the interview process was a little too long-winded in the tooth. It was like, come on, okay, like
Yeah, mine was 2 months.
Yeah, to me that's just I don't know.
Yeah.
I feel like
I think there was like, if I'm not mistaken, I think there was 450 candidates, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, that's a lot. Yeah.
Yeah. It was a lot of, it was very, I had like the patience was, because I was talking to another 2 companies at the same time and they were hitting me with offers and I was like being real patient, spoke to my wife and she was like, no, you love games. This is like a hell of an opportunity. Like, they haven't given you any kind of negative signs so far. But it was annoying because I did the first interview and then I had to wait and I had to wait and I had to wait. And then one of the people that I was waiting for got sick. So it delayed it even more.
Yeah.
And it was just a whole big process, but I stuck to my guns and I'm glad I did because I ended up, getting it.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. That's awesome. Like, I've always wondered, like, if and I think I would have gotten the job at ZeniMax, but I always wonder, like, what would have happened had I gotten the job. I don't even know if I would have been able to have this channel. That's something that that I was actually having conversations with the late great Optimus Code, rest in peace. When at the time I was going through this, I was talking to him about it because he had spent some time in the gaming industry, and so it's something he brought up, like, hey, at some point you may need to have that conversation with them. If you get to that, if they extend an offer, or you get to that point where an offer might be coming up, you may want to talk to them about the fact that you have a YouTube channel that talks about video games. So,
I let them know that as well when I was doing the.
Oh, you did?
I was
Okay.
I was very open about that. After, obviously NDAs aside, there's things I can't really discuss, but yeah, I was just super honest about it. I mean, when I interviewed, I have my studio back here. I have all my like drawings on the wall and like my Xbox Elite controller and my DualSense and all my gaming systems and like my whole setup, and they saw all that and they were like, "Oh, what's that all for?" And I was like, I do a YouTube channel and I do a podcast, but yeah." And I think they like the honesty about it, that I wasn't like trying to hide it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not something you want to hide, right? You don't want them to find that out after the fact. That's never a good thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I've always wondered, if had I taken that job, what it would have been like to be in the industry, and if I would have been able to have this channel. But I went in a different direction. Some of it was for financial reasons, and some of it was for career reasons. The place I landed was I think better for me career wise, and obviously better for me monetarily speaking. But yeah, no, it was cool that I got to talk to. And actually, the person I initially interviewed had worked at Activision, had worked at EA, and so it was really cool to get the perspective of having perspective of somebody who's worked at these different publishers. And one of the things he said to me was, once you get your foot in the door, once you're in the gaming industry, you're in forever. I mean, you can pretty much go anywhere at that point. Once you're in, is how he described it. So
yeah, it's kind of funny because I have a basically twice a year I have to fly out there to Redmond. I'm like kind of shaking in my boots a little bit though, because I know during like company meetings they have with higher ups, I know that inevitably I will see and meet Phil Spencer, and that to me is like wild because I mean with everything going on with him now and what I've been seeing on YouTube and back and forth and all, like it's pretty insane to think that I'll be meeting him in person and like, yeah, I think there's a big difference categorically between the people that are like the faces of these video game companies that we see all the time, like Phil Spencer and all these people. And then you actually, when you interview, you see the people behind the scenes, the people that never get any kind of traction, the people you don't know about, the ones doing like the 99% of the work. So it's kind of a weird thing.
Are you going to ask Phil why Redfall's at 30 FPS? I'm just joking.
Maybe.
We're not gonna. Someone says, tell Phil to stop hustling players when things get good and increase prices. We'll talk about price increases here in a little bit. But all right, I do want to go to. Thanks for sharing your gaming history here with us, Basher. But I do want to get to some news items here. We did have a Nintendo Direct. And I got to say, look, I didn't have any expectations coming into this Nintendo Direct, but I did enjoy some of the games that they showed off. I thought it was a decent Direct. It was I think it lasted about a little bit over 40 minutes or so. Some of the games they revealed were Super Mario Brothers Wonder, which is a brand new 2D Mario, which I look, 2D Mario, I'm there day one. The real big surprise for me and the one that got me really excited, I know you mentioned you started off gaming on the Nintendo Entertainment System, but Nintendo announced the Super Mario RPG remake, which is coming out actually November of this year. I'm like, oh yes. So there's that. But man, I tell you, we're eating well here as gamers. With Spider-Man coming out in October, with Starfield coming out in September, like I don't know. I just don't know when I'm going to have time to play these games. But I'm definitely interested in Super Mario RPG remake. So again, that releases November 17th of this year. Detective Pikachu 2 is coming to Nintendo Switch in October of this year. We also get a Metal Gear Solid Collection Volume 1 for the Nintendo Switch, which is coming out, which is cool because it also includes the original Metal Gear games. Did you ever play the original Metal Gear on Nintendo Entertainment System?
I did, yeah. The original Metal Gear, I did.
Yeah, I mean, that was... It's funny, I remember playing that at my cousin's house, as a matter of fact. He's like, hey, I just got this new game, Metal Gear. The box art looked cool. I'm like, cool, let's play it. Box art looks good. Popped it in. We were addicted. And
that box art was so good.
Yeah, the box art was good.
Even though it looks nothing like Snake.
No, it looks nothing like him. It kind of looks like Jace. Who's a character?
They definitely were going like 80s trope celebrity, like Dolph Lundgren look.
Well, it looks like the guy from Terminator who plays.
You're talking about T-1000? Robert Patrick?
No, is it not Robert Patrick? It looks like for the first Terminator movie. The guy that comes back and saves the
You're
first
talking about you took Kyle Reese.
Kyle Reese. Yes, so the box art looks like Kyle Reese.
Yeah, for sure. That's definitely Kyle Reese. You nailed it, dude.
Yeah. So then there's some amiibos that are coming later this year, which I'm gonna get the amiibos for Tears of the Kingdom. There's a Zelda and Ganondorf will be getting new amiibos for holiday 2023, which again I'll pick up. There is a Wario Wave. It's a latest Wario Wave game. It's Wario. I can't even talk. WarioWare Move It, which will be released on Nintendo Switch this September. Not September. I'm sorry, November. And we got some new details on Pikmin 4. And there's also, what was the other game that was announced to? Luigi Mansion Dark Moon Remaster.
They're doing a remaster.
Yep, that was also announced along with a Princess Peach game. Vampire
it's so
Survivors.
Funny, man.
Yeah, go ahead.
It's so funny, man. 3DS games getting ported. Like it's so funny how Nintendo they got it locked, man. They release this stuff and it's like no pennies out of their pocket whatsoever, and they're just gonna get a kill. They're gonna make a killing on it.
Yeah, I think yeah. I mean, people definitely look. I got excited, even though
I'm with you. I did too. Yeah.
I'm just like, oh, this is great. I'm sorry. Let me get back to the article here. Vampire Survivors finally makes its way to Nintendo Switch. That's coming out August 17th. New Dragon Quest Monsters: The Dark Prince was announced. No release. Well, actually, I think that release is set to release December 1st of this year.
BRAP, you know what I want? I want a. You remember Monsters in My Pocket?
I do not. Nope. Doesn't ring a bell.
That's a NES classic, dude. That's so good. I want to remake of that game. Or Burger Time. Remember Burger Time?
Oh yeah, I do remember Burger Time. Yep.
Yeah,
I do remember Burger Time. Sonic Superstars got a new gameplay trailer. They show that off. The one that really surprised me was Batman Arkham Trilogy.
Yeah,
like I was
the last good Rocksteady game.
Yeah, well, yeah, right. I mean, I was really surprised to see that coming to the Switch, and that's coming this fall as well. In addition, all the DLC will arrive with those games too. So, again, a lot of us have been asking for another Batman game. That's a lot of us. I have from Rocksteady, but they're at least they're giving us this. So the trilogy, the Arkham trilogy.
You want to see a new Batman game or like Batman Arkham type graphics? Go watch the new Flash movie. It's like watching an Xbox 360 game.
I haven't seen. I've been meaning to go to the movie theater just to check that out, but haven't yet. Let's see here. Star Ocean, the second story was announced as well. This is Star Ocean. The second story goes back to like PlayStation. Was it like 25 years ago? I think.
Yeah, I never played any of them though.
Yeah, I remember playing it, the second Star Ocean, but that was such a long time ago. So this remake features a full reimaging of the original game with a mix of 2D pixel characters and 3D environments. So that's coming this year, actually, November 23rd. Or I'm sorry, November 3rd of this year.
BRAP, I want to say off topic real quick. I just want to be honest with you.
Yeah.
I think your intro to your podcast is one of the best sounding intros, music wise.
Oh, thank you.
That I've ever heard for a podcast.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it.
It's good. Yeah, man. It's really good.
Like, I randomly came across that song, by the way. Like I was looking at like songs that like I wouldn't get, because YouTube will give you a list of songs that you can use that are like safe, for monetization.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, copyright free.
And I just came across this song. It was so random.
Yeah, it's good.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. Persona 5 Tactica received a new gameplay trailer. That was actually revealed at the Xbox Game Showcase. That's also coming November for the Nintendo Switch. So a lot of games are coming to Nintendo Switch this fall. What else? Myth Force, which is coming this year as well. That's inspired by the Saturday morning cartoon Myth Force, which is something I never really watched. So that's also arriving to the Switch. Mario Rabbids Sparks of Hope, The Last Spark Hunter is also the newest DLC. for Mario Rabbids, so that's coming out. The demo's actually, I think the demo's out today, if I'm not mistaken. Then we also Splatoon 3's next Splash Fest was also announced. That's going to be taking place from July 14th to 16th. That's basically going to challenge players to choose whether vanilla, strawberry, or mint chips is their best flavor of ice cream. So actually, I do enjoy Splatoon. I one of those games that surprised me from Nintendo. But I probably won't be playing this event that's happening.
I never got the whole obsession with Splatoon, to be honest.
Yeah, it's it's funny. I remember playing it online one time, and I was thinking, oh yeah, I'm going to go in there and just own people, and that wasn't what happened. It's actually the mechanics it's a pretty good game. So there were some. What's that?
I said I'm more of a Mario Kart guy.
Yeah, so those were the game. Those are some of the games they've announced. There's some other titles they announced. But I got to say, I thought it was Hot Wheels Unleashed 2 was another game that kind of piqued my interest. I think that's coming out October 19th. That's going to have about 130 vehicles that you can choose from. But I got to say, I thought it was a pretty good showcase. There's definitely a lot of content that's coming to the Switch. The Star Ocean, and I don't know if I'll pick up Batman Arkham Knight's trilogy. I might. But
you probably own it in enough places already.
What's that?
I said you probably own Batman and Arkham Knight series in enough places already.
Yeah, I do. I have it on PC. I had it on through GamePass. I think it was on PlayStation Plus, if not mistaken.
Yeah.
It's one of those games I've owned quite a few times, I think.
Yeah.
But I think the option to have it on a portable handheld is probably one of the reasons why I might grab it, because if I'm ever on a trip, it's something I could just kind of play and enjoy. But the Metal Gear Collection 2 is something I'm interested in. I'm kind of I don't know if that's something I'll pick up in October, just because there's so much content coming out, but that could be something that I pick up down the line.
Yeah.
And then the Super Mario RPG remake, which was another big one. And so was the Mario Brothers, the new 2D Mario, Super Mario Brothers Wonder, which I thought looked pretty cool. So those are the games that I'm looking forward to the most. No, I didn't ask you earlier, Besh, do you have a Nintendo Switch?
I do.
Okay. Any of these games resonate with you? Or is there anything that kind of stood out to you about from the Nintendo Direct that you might be interested in?
Mario RPG definitely, for sure, because I never played it. So that's something which is very interesting to me. The Switch for me is mine and my kids' console. Like, that's where we connect in gaming. I'm actually going through Bowser's Fury right now with my daughter. So yeah, I'm as far as I think the Metal Gear Solid collection, because I'm a huge Metal Gear fan. That's probably like up my alley. But other than that, I don't know. I'm a little hesitant with the Switch, only because I know that Nintendo is going to be releasing announcing their new hardware soon. So there's a hesitation from me on that standpoint. Plus, with all these handhelds now, like the Steam Deck and the Asus and all that, I don't know. It's money's money, right? Like, where you invest it, where you put it. Got to be strategic these days.
Yeah, and the logic. I know you also own a Nintendo Switch. Was there anything out of that list or from the Nintendo Direct that you're interested in?
Only Gloomhaven and Hot Wheels Unleashed 2.
I'm sorry, you said Hot Wheels Unleashed 2?
Yep. And Gloomhaven. Those were the only two things I was interested in.
Gloomhaven. Gotcha. Okay. I'm trying to see if there was I thought there was something else that piqued my interest. I think there was a Mario Kart. There's something with Mario Kart.
There's the Wave 5 expansion
Wave 5
pack.
Pass. Yep, that's right. Yep. Yeah, I gotta get back into Mario Kart.
They need a Wave Race remake, dude. That's what they need to do.
Oh, I would buy that.
Real, super simulated, next gen waves. Yeah. I'm down.
Yeah, so that was it from the Nintendo Direct. Again, I thought it was a decent showing. So I'm excited. Again, a lot of games coming out for that platform in October. And if you're a multi-platform owner, you have decisions to make, like me. I've got a lot of decisions to make. So I don't think I'm going to get to a lot of those games. So with, like I said, with Spider-Man and the Starfield coming out. So
yeah,
all right,
it's tough to get to it all.
Yeah, I just don't have enough time. That's the problem.
You're a dad like me. We have limited time.
Yeah. I did go back to playing. I actually mentioned this to Game Logic off air. I said, I was playing Diablo 4, and then I've gotten a little bit tired of playing Diablo 4 more recently. And so I went back to play Tears of the Kingdom, which I was playing before. And I said to Logic, I said, I wish I never left Tears of the Kingdom. I wish I would just.
I don't know what it is, man. I'm trying to beat that game, and I'm playing Jedi Survivor at the same time. And Jedi Survivor keeps dissuading me from playing Tears of the Kingdom because it runs so, like for me on my PC, it runs so fluid. And I go back to Tears, and it's like 30, like 30, barely 1080. I'm like, oh, come on. But Tears of the Kingdom it's Zelda. I don't know. It's tough, man.
Yeah, it's a great game. Like I'm really enjoying it. It's definitely I see it as a potential Game of the Year contender. I'd be surprised if it wasn't in the conversation for Game of the Year. Now, Logic, I know it's only June, but it's a solid game. It's probably one of the best games I've played so far this year.
What was that? I wasn't paying attention.
Oh, I said I know it's June. It's only June. I was saying I think that Tears of the Kingdom will be in that conversation for Game of the Year contender, or as a Game of the Year contender. And then I said I know it's only June.
I'm sorry. What was that again? I wasn't paying attention. There's some term you keep mentioning that.
You know what?
Sends me to sleep.
I'm not repeating myself again. I know what you're doing.
No. BRAP, you don't think Starfield stands a chance? Come on.
I've been saying for a long time I thought Starfield could have a shot if Bethesda can pull off this epic space adventure. Yeah, I think so. Given their pedigree.
Mm.
I mean, Starfield is one of my most anticipated games.
Yeah. It's I don't know. I think Starfield is a very important game
for Todd Howard and Company, Xbox, both.
Just in general for gaming, for Xbox, in the sense of like the genre that it's touching upon. We don't really get a lot of games like this, BRAP. Like, let's remember that, right? Like, I mean. The only other games I can think of that are in the realm of Starfield right now are like Star Citizen and No Man's Sky. So like when you talk about Starfield, you got to kind of put your preferences to the side and like just that's the way I look at it, right? It's not going to be a game that I pick up and play and I'm going to dump 500 hours into. It's going to be a game that I play that I'm like, I'm working and I'm like, you know what? I'm going to go to a planet real quick and just like mine some stuff and maybe shoot some people and hijack a ship and then turn it off. Play for like an hour, like kind of like some medicine type situation. But I think as a whole, the game itself should be respected in the sense of like what it's doing for gaming and what it's going to bring to the table, and that it has a possibility of being the next Skyrim, which to this very day Skyrim is just loved by a lot of people still. So whether you love it or hate it, it's an important game.
Yeah, I could definitely see Starfield kind of in the same vein as Skyrim being one of those games that just goes on for years and people continue to play for years. And obviously I think with, we talked about last week, the 30 FPS, obviously I think performance is going to improve. It would have surprised me if we see down the line, maybe like even next console gen, we get like a, I don't know, like an anniversary edition of Starfield, with higher frames and things like that,
Yeah.
The things that people wanted to see on the console this gen. I could see that coming at a later date. So
I know a lot of people are waiting for Bethesda to make an appearance, but if I got to be kind of upfront, I would expect a lot of people to see that, to wait and get ready that Starfield might launch with less bugs than the usual, just because of the narrative to which was put in place by Redfall, and the Q&A and how they let that out the door being a mess. I don't think lightning strikes twice. I don't think we should be expecting that. I think we should be expecting a lot more polished Bethesda game this time around. It's not going to be perfect because open world games are almost impossible from a QA perspective to get like into a position to be perfect and run like, let's say, a Tears of the Kingdom. But I would expect it to be a lot less bug filled than, let's say, like the most recent conversations of like Fallout 76 or even Fallout 4.
Yeah, and that's what I think, according to Matt Booty, that this is the least buggiest of the Bethesda games, according to Matt Booty.
Yeah, I mean, Booty. Matt Booty is obviously under a lot of heat right now, as Phil Spencer is as well. But again, these guys also have they have their repertoire to uphold and who they are, and they don't want to look stupid a second time around, right? I mean, they want to keep their jobs too at the same time. Like, and everybody knows that they let Redfall out the door being a mess. And if they do that again, I wouldn't doubt for 1 second that their jobs would be at risk. Because now everybody's like the spotlight's on them, and who is going to review this game prior and let it out the door. So, yeah, I mean, I would expect a game that is way more polished than what we've seen in the past from Bethesda, and a lot of pressures on Todd Howard as well.
Yeah,
I don't know if you saw it in the last conference, but he didn't have his leather jacket on. That says a lot.
Yeah, no leather jacket. No leather
serious.
jacket. Yeah,
serious Todd Howard.
You're serious, Todd Howard. It's like when Hulk Hogan turned to the NWO. It was like that.
Yeah, he had one button undone, showing a little chest hair, no leather jacket. He was in the thick of it, dude.
He definitely was. Component of the chat wants to know, BRAP, what's more interesting to you, ship creation or base management? I'm going to go with ship creation. I'm going to go with ship creation. I can see myself spending some time doing some ship creation. So, all right, I do want to move on to Final Fantasy 16 because unless Hamp, you got anything you want to add to with regards to Starfield, or you good?
I almost hate to mention it because I don't really mention it as a matter of wanting to kick Starfield's knees out from underneath it. I mention it more as a matter of technical perspective. I mean, there's a part of me that says this should be the least buggy Bethesda game released, right, in recent history, because by virtue of them eliminating a platform that it's going to, the total number of defects should be theoretically less. I mean, I know that marketing's making a big deal about that, but I kind of feel like from a technical perspective that should be a given. I think in terms of its historical perspective, a lot of it depends on how well it sticks the landing. Games that are very ambitious and it's good. Star Citizen was brought up. Chris Roberts has been chasing the ultimate realization of what he wanted to build with Freelancer for a very long time now. And Star Citizen's really good in particular in the way that it utilizes certain technologies that can benefit some games that are deploying today with CPU contention and resource management, and unfortunately in the case of Starfield, like hitting frame rates. So I mean, Star Citizen's a very ambitious game which has moved the needle a little bit in certain directions, but it's not like globally praised and globally like held up because of its ambition. So I mean, I feel Starfield is good that somebody's kind of moving in the direction of that vision, but it also needs to stick the landing, I think, in order to realize any notion of historic placement, right, in gaming frame. I mean, Anthem was ambitious, but it didn't stick the landing. Yeah. And so while it showed us visions of some things that are the art of the possible, I don't know that it's going to be heralded or given credit, long term, and kind of looking at the history of the industry for the things that it accomplished.
Well, if you look at something like Anthem, you have to look at the internal factor of that as well. Like, I knew a couple people that worked on Anthem in Austin. And that was a situation to which you had the suits come in. There was a lot of contractual employees that were in there. Kind of very similar situation to what happened with Halo Infinite, where they had a lot of different code being bounced around and being consistently changed. A lot of different ideas being bounced around and being consistently changed. At the heart of it all, Anthem did have a very structurally sound gameplay setup. I mean, it was an Iron Man simulator, and it played fantastically in that regard. I think where it lost its translation was in the idea of how many different things they were trying to do at once and how many different things they did not get approval on from the suits that came in there from EA. And then, of course, having people that were working on the game and then having those people be replaced by other individuals to meet business criteria. In this case, I'm going to just leave it at that. So, yeah, I would use Anthem as an example in some ways, but I don't think that the typical song and dance that Microsoft has been known for with contractual employees, 6 months, that sort of deal. I don't think that we're seeing that a lot with Bethesda Studios with Starfield. I think that what we're going to see with Starfield is going to be more in accordance to a company that is sticking to their guns and using the same code throughout and keeping that development consistent because they have to, because they know how important this game is for them and for Microsoft. It is the most important game to come out for Xbox, I believe, since Halo 1 at this point. I can say that without a shadow of a doubt. So I get what you're saying, but at the same time, I'm going to have to look at also the factors to which happen in a gaming development studio, like what happened with BioWare and Anthem. So, and I can attest to that firsthand, that I knew people in there that had told me it was a hair-pulling experience when it came to the development of it.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you on the causality, and I don't think I was necessarily trying to argue the causality or attribute the same causality for one scenario to the other. I think game development, I mean, as projects are, have the same sociological factors that we find when we go back and do case studies of any of these projects, which is that the ones that are successful, you don't necessarily ascribe to that as a formula and then expect that if you do that exact thing that you're going to replicate that success. And the same is true for the failure. I think what I'd point out is, while those causalities might not exist with regards to Starfield and at Bethesda, that doesn't mean that there aren't other root causes that will have an impact on how it launches. All I'm saying is that it's the ambition in and of itself doesn't necessarily attribute to where it's going to hold its place in history. Its place in history is going to be held by how successful it is at launch, and I think that's
absolutely
something that we'll find out when it actually lands.
Yeah, that's a great point. And Basher, I think you've riled up some people in the live chat here. By the way.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, with your no, it's fine, man. With your commentary about, I think the Starfield, the importance of Starfield, or
I mean, hey, listen, if you're going to sit here and say that Starfield is not the most important Xbox game to come out, is not going to be the most important Xbox game to come out to date, after they fumbled the ball on Halo, they fumbled the ball on Redfall, they fumbled the ball on all these things, like you're living under a rock.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that, Basher. I think it's because of Redfall. And this is Redfall was their first current gen only first party exclusive. This will be the second, and we talked about this on the show a lot, where we talked about the the management, the delivery pipeline, and we've talked about Halo Infinite quite a bit on the show. But yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of pressure on this game because of the lack of the lack of consistency coming out of Microsoft's first party right now. So look, I hope they stick the landing. I have high hopes because I'm obviously a fan of Bethesda games. I've enjoyed the Elder Scrolls series, the Fallout games, and I want to see them. I want to see this game do well.
I think also there's got to be a precedent too, right? Like if we're gonna have this discussion, we're gonna have to bring in the idea of the precedent, right? Like if Starfield, I think everybody needs to be rooting for this game, not because you're an Xbox or PlayStation fan, but because you're a gamer. And I'll say that wholeheartedly. Why? Because the precedent the bar that needs to be met. So whether you love or hate Starfield at this moment in time, if it is successful and they do what they say they're going to do, and they launch this simulator that is just going to be incredible in the things you can do and the vastness of it, it will leave a precedent in other companies' mouths in the idea of like, hey, we can't get away with just releasing half-assed products anymore because the people are not going to have that, and they're going to put us in a corner, and they're going to pressure us, and they're going to make sure that we do it right, and because they're not stupid, and you don't. As a gamer, the last thing you want to feel is like you're stupid, like you invested your hard-earned money into something and it was trash. In this case, I'm going to say like Redfall, perfect example of that. So every gamer right now should be rooting for this game, not because you love it or hate it, but because if it is successful and they do their due diligence and release a product that they've been promising, that will create precedent for other companies to do exactly the same for you.
My only concern with that is I think by vast majority, I root for every game, right? I want every game to come out and do well. The reality is that they don't. And while I want them all to come out and do well, I also don't take on any accountability for them, right? Not sticking the landing. While it's true that every game that comes out and does well sets some type of bar, I just don't know that Starfield coming out and sticking the landing means that everybody's, every game and every studio is going to chase behind it and try and achieve the same apogee. I mean, if that were the case, that would be true for every game that's come out well and set the bar before. I just think that the industry is where the industry is, and second of all, there's just some weird stuff going on this generation that is not the norm that we would see. Production schedules are way off the mark all around the industry. Performance with this generation of hardware, both on PC and on consoles, I almost hate to say it, but with the exception of PlayStation 5, right, where teams seem to have figured something out, seems to be a problem. There's intense contention between software developers and hardware manufacturers from a certain sector of the software developers who want more and more VRAM, more and more resources, and the hardware manufacturers and their SKUs and what's coming out of the fabrication plants, and either not wanting to give them more, or NVIDIA and AMD playing different games, but then AMD doing things on PC that they're not necessarily doing on console. I feel like that would be great if that were the ideal and that were achieved. I just don't know that Starfield doing well is going to lead to a groundswell and a bow wave of improvement of quality delivery for games across the industry and across the generation.
Well, any game that's going to be looked at as something that is going to be a possible failure from the past to which it rides on, like in this case, Fallout 76 and what have you. At the end of the day, Starfield being successful is basically a studio saying, we did this and we were not bullshitting about it. We did it, we got it right, and we launched it for our fans because we care about the people that play these games. We wanted to get it right for them. So it might not make a swell, like you're saying. It might not make a massive impact across the genre, but it does start a precedent of a conversation that we are seeing more and more of. And that conversation is like, look at Rocksteady, right? Rocksteady, they showed off their Suicide Squad game. They didn't want to risk releasing that game because of the backlash that they got from people after they saw it, and they were like, oh, this looks like Crackdown at the end of the day. So I think that if us as gamers push back more and more and more and are realistic in the sense of like what we want to play and what we will, I guess, at the end of the day, swallow when it comes to the games that are put out there for $70, which is it's a high price. Gaming is not cheap. It's not a cheap hobby. I think that with time, we will essentially kind of win that argument against these companies who are the suits, who are trying to give us half-assed products for $70 and just get away with it. And I know that sounds like crazy to think like, hey, are we combating with these companies as gamers? They need us. They need us to buy the games. And I think that's why the companies as a whole, they're trying to launch this new narrative. And that new narrative is games as a live service, because that in itself is easy money. It's something that if you create something that's successful, you can milk the audience for little knickknacks here and there and little things like costumes and what have you, and gun skins and what have you, and they'll buy it and you make your money that way. And you put in half the work and whatever the case may be. I think that gaming companies as a whole, they want that to be successful. They want that to be the new narrative. They don't want to spend $300 million on a game to possibly have it sell. That's why you see Sony even jumping into the live service conversation and saying that's why their kind of conversation is shifting as well. Where you had something like Factions that was probably going to be a story-driven co-op experience in a Last of Us universe. They probably had something that was incredible put together, and Sony looked at that and were like, no, we want something that we can make money off of. We want something that's easier to do, something that we can milk people with. And that is what you have to be concerned about. So Starfield being successful in its own right and doing well still shows that gamers are smart, that they're intelligent, that they're not stupid, that they're not just having blindfolds over them, that they want something that's got quality behind it, and that we're just not a bunch of 15-year-olds playing Fortnite.
It'll be good if it works out that way. I think the thing that I've seen that has caused me concern is, when you look at Matt Booty's comments and interviews after the showcase, he mentioned taking accountability for Redfall, which I thought was a great thing for him to say, because it's kind of appalling the low degree of frequency with which I hear the word accountability from either corporate leadership across this industry and all technology industries, and especially from fandoms. It seems like it's been this notion that responsibility is something that you can delegate, but accountability is not, is a saying that's been lost with a lot of sayings over the last 30 years. So it was good to hear him say that, but in the same breath, right after that comment, what he said was, Redfall is a miss, but it's getting good Game Pass play. So how much of a miss is it? So that mention, right, causes concern that, maybe the tides aren't shifting as much. But yeah, I agree with you that, I hope with every game, with every release, success and or failure is met with appropriate, following of the dollars, and the companies, respond to that. I'm less concerned about how people react to stuff on social media, because I think that's a bit of a mythic quest. But hopefully, Starfield, and a problem we'll have in trying to assess it, right, is because of the damping effect of Game Pass. But hopefully Starfield does what it does and hits the internal metrics it needs to, and that word is put out in whatever format Microsoft so chooses to do it, so it does have that industry impact.
Yeah, I just want to make a comment here in the live chat. DLW, please don't take things out of context here. Basher and no one on the panel suggested that only intelligent gamers appreciate Starfield. That's ridiculous. No one said that.
No, I never said that.
Yeah, that's just yeah.
I'm just saying as a whole, like the whole console war thing is a little bit outplayed for me at this point in time.
No, I know what you mean about, like, he's not grasping. I think DLW is probably console warring and just anyhow. So no, I do want to move on to I was expecting to talk about Starfield, but that's okay. But I do want to move on to Final Fantasy 16, because that game releases tomorrow, actually at midnight tonight. Some people are already playing it, depending where you are on planet Earth. And hold on a second. No, DLW, you're grasping at straws here. That's not what he's talking about. I don't know why you're trying to spin it that way. And that's not hyperbole. Jesus.
That's okay, man.
some of you people, if the world was to end today, are Hamp, you might appreciate this. Some of the people, if the world's going to end today, some of the people here aren't going to make it inside the vault. I'll leave it at that. By the way,
I root for all consoles and all gamers. That's my goal at the end of the day.
Yeah, I don't. People get so wrapped up in console where they just can't stop and hit the pause button and actually critically think about what someone is saying without, yeah.
Just for you all wondering, I'm a PlayStation fan, big PlayStation fan, and I got hired at a Microsoft studio. That's how much console wars matter to these studios. Just keep that in. I want to just use that as an example. So if you want to take that as what you will.
Well, Game Logic, apparently you're kind of quiet tonight. Capono wants to know if you're okay. All right.
Is that a comment about my mic volume or just how much I'm talking? Because I did need to ask. So I'm on a different mic tonight, so I have to rely on the chat to QA my mic volume. So.
No, I think it's because you're not talking as much.
Okay. Yeah, gotcha.
Yeah. No, your mic sounds good. All right. Capoto's QAing you. He says your mic sounds good. All right. So Final Fantasy 16 releases tonight or at midnight, and I don't know when my copy is going to arrive. I ordered it through Amazon, so who knows? Haven't received the email yet from Amazon saying that it's shipped. At this point, if I don't receive an email tomorrow, I might just cancel it and just download the digital copy on the PlayStation 5. But I did learn something today, Game Logic. Apparently, Final Fantasy 16, being a console exclusive, is proof that Sony is a monopoly. But outside of that, the reviews for Final Fantasy 16 have been really good, as a matter of fact. If you look at the Metacritic scores, it is trending 88 on Metacritic. And on OpenCritic, it is at 90 right now. So
wow.
the game is reviewing very well. IGN, I'll read this. IGN gave it a 90, a 9 out of 10. They said featuring fast, reflex-driven, action-heavy combat, Final Fantasy 16 is certainly a departure from what fans may expect out of a Final Fantasy game. But its excellent story, characters, and world building are right up there with the best this series has to offer. And the innovative active time lore feature should set a new standard for how lengthy story-heavy games. I can't read. I'm sorry. Active time lore feature should set a new standard for how lengthy story-heavy games keep players invested in this world. And actually, that's kind of like a Wikipedia. I was reading about this active time lore feature in Final Fantasy. It's kind of like a Wikipedia type feature in game to kind of keep you up to speed with what's going on. That's kind of a unique thing to add to a game, because I have found myself lost at times in Final Fantasy games. But that was something that was brought up quite a bit in the reviews. But this is let's pull up some other. I'll pull up Digital Trends. Gave it a 60. They said Final Fantasy 16 delivers on the action side of its action RPG formula. A fierce and fast-paced combat system makes for the series' most exciting stab at real-time swordplay yet, while its blockbuster icon fights rank amongst some of the gaming's most awe-inspiring battles. But there's general flatness surrounding those exhilarating highs, as shallow RPG hooks and data design leave a promising evolution for the series stuck in the past. So that was Digital Trends reviews.
Sounds like somebody soured it didn't make it turn-based.
There was some. There was some dialogue amongst diehard Final Fantasy fans who weren't happy with the direction of the combat in Final Fantasy 16. I was okay. I played the demo. I actually liked that. And look, the developer behind the combat in Devil May Cry 5 is behind Final Fantasy 16, and you could see the influence. If you play the demo, it's there. It very much feels. It does feel like a Devil May Cry game in some ways, but it's not full on Devil May Cry either. I don't see how this game is not getting applause everywhere. I mean, I played the demo and I was like, this is literally like Final Fantasy and Game of Thrones had a baby with Devil May Cry combat. Well, it's interesting you say that, because I want to be careful. I guess I could talk about it because it was in the reviews. one of the reviews I read did bring up that you play the demo, it feels like Game of Thrones. And this goes back to what you and I were discussing Game Logic about. If you play the demo, and you came away thinking that it's a Game of Thrones, and maybe you're not a Final Fantasy, fan per se, is a demo going to be representative of what this game is? And reading a lot of the reviews, yes, it does feel like Game of Thrones, but it absolutely is a Final Fantasy game.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And there's chocobos, there's music, Final Fantasy music. It's all that in there.
Yeah. So, I'm trying to read
so
go ahead.
Do you dress a character up in drag and have a karaoke sequence in a bar?
No, you don't. That's
Unfortunately, you do not.
No, that's not. They're not carrying that over from Final Fantasy VII. They're not doing that. But there are a lot of those, side missions. Obviously, the chocobos are there. But one of the praises that I've heard with Final Fantasy 16, some of the reviews is the music. Some of the reviews have ranked the musical score in this game the best of any Final Fantasy series or any Final Fantasy game. I think that's a high mark.
There's some remixed old school FF tunes in there for sure that I really liked.
Oh, I didn't notice that. Are they?
Oh yeah. Yeah, you can hear some old school
I'd have to go
FF
back.
tunes in there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna lie, I still get a little choked up when I hear Aerith's theme song, but yeah. I remember I missed the PlayStation. Remember the PlayStation 4? They the custom what is it? Oh my god. Why am I drawing a blank here? Maybe you could customize your PlayStation 4, your theme, the customized themes. Games. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I remember when the Final Fantasy VII remake came out, I had Cloud. It was a picture of Cloud, and he was facing the city, and you could only see his back, but every time I fired up my PlayStation 4, Aerith's theme song would come on.
Yeah, I remember that. I think I had that same theme.
Let me tell you, man, the feels.
Oh,
every time I fired up my PlayStation 4 and that song would come on. Twisted Senses, I have the Tifa one. I mean, just classic. Yeah. But some people are saying that the musical score in this game is the best of the series. That's high praise. That's high praise.
So is the soundtrack now gameplay? Do we play orchestrations now? Is that part of the criteria?
I do.
I'm just trolling you.
No, I do. That's just Cap, man.
I think Final Fantasy 16 as a whole, actually, believe it or not, from a I guess cinematography standpoint, I'm going to say, what they did, I believe, is they basically took pieces of every single kind of like fictional popular story, even like from a cinematic perspective. I don't know, I don't want to ruin it for anybody if you haven't played the demo, but the demo starts off like shot for shot almost of the Balrog, I think it's the Balrog fight scene with Gandalf in Lord of the Rings falling. Like, I don't know if you guys noticed that, but even the wide shot that they do, where they fall through the ground, both of the summons are fighting each other.
Yeah, the summons are fighting each other. That's right. Yeah. You're right. I didn't even think about that.
Yeah, there's a lot of inspiration from a lot of films for this game. It's like they took Game of Thrones, Lord of the Rings, the color palette, the lumetri presets, everything. It's very, very inspired by Peter Jackson and by George R.R. Martin, 100%.
Yeah, I didn't even think about that. I mean, and that boss. I mean, I'm playing the boss, not the boss battle, but the summons that are fighting each other during the demo. I mean, they were. I don't know if you ever played Panzer Dragoon.
I did,
but there were some Panzer Dragoon moments there for me too.
Yeah.
The way you would lock on, you were kind of on a rail there. And I'm like, oh my God, like this is like Panzer Dragoon. I'm like, this is what I wish Microsoft would like do a like Panzer Dragoon or to remake or something, but they'll probably never happen.
That'd be awesome.
They won't do it, but no, I mean, like those fight sequences were just, I mean, and that's kind of a staple too. I mean, like if you play Final Fantasy 15, there was Noctis and those big fight sequences as well, but this, I just felt like this was just on a much grander scale.
I just don't get the conversation that's in the room about like this not being turn based when you have a game like the FF7 remake. Like it wasn't really even turn based either. I mean, the combat system in there was very action oriented.
It was action oriented, yeah. But I remember when even with that, the diehards were like, "Oh, this isn't turn based. This sucks." You know, this is, you know, they bastardized the you know. There's always gonna be people the diehards that complain, but
yeah.
But no, I and having played the original Final Fantasy VII, I didn't have any issue with Final Fantasy VII remake, and I don't have any issue. You know, coming off 15, which is turn-based, I don't have any issue coming off a 15 into 16 and having that new combat system, that kind of what I would describe as kind of a fresh take to it. I was okay with it. I thought it worked well. Still do spells, do combination attacks. If you know, you could do melee or spell, a combination of both. I didn't have any issue with it. I thought it played well.
Even the dialogue is very well recorded. Yeah. I mean, it's not cheesy. It's not like on the nose. It's for me, it's very well done. The demo sold me 100%. And it sold a lot of other people as well. I don't know if you saw the pre-order stats on that, but they were worried for a bit, and now it's skyrocketing. Everyone's jumping on it.
Yeah. So I haven't paid attention to this. Is this Final Fantasy active time battle?
Is it? No, it is no active time. This is like, it's just like there's moves set to certain buttons, and you're running around like Devil May Cry, essentially. Same thing.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, it's very much like Devil May Cry. Not to the sense where you're hitting those combos like Devil May Cry, you know, but it is like Devil May Cry.
Which is, I mean, there are worse things to be compared to. I'll tell you that right now.
Oh yeah, I don't disagree. I mean, you know, Devil May Cry 5 is a really good Devil May Cry game.
Some of the best action you'll get in the game right there.
Oh yeah, I don't disagree with that. Yeah, it's a solid game. But no, to your point, Ham, it's to your question, Ham, it's not. It's very much like that action oriented Devil May Cry type fight style, but it does infuse some of the Final Fantasy gameplay mechanics in terms of like basically being able to use magic.
I think Sanu.com hit it right on the head. The game just feels like it just feels really good to play, and you just feel cool playing it. Like you feel badass playing it.
So the combat system is kind of hack and slash beat 'em up then.
BRAP, would you say beat 'em up? I wouldn't say beat 'em up. I would say more like, again, like just Devil May Cry, a lot of sword, elemental combat, magic.
Yeah, there's magic, and you know, you do have to dodge. There's QTEs that are incorporated too that are, you know, that you need to hit. But yeah, I mean, it's. So actually, someone said Nier Automata. That's probably, I would say it's kind of a fair comparison, but I did think that there were some. I mean, there's some things that are Final Fantasy like ish, you know. And the reason I say ish is the use of magic. You know, you're fighting with, you know, your I guess your teammates.
Did you play on performance or resolution mode?
I played on performance, but I've heard some people say, like I was reading Gene Park's review, Washington Post, and he was saying he played in graphics mode or he played fidelity mode over performance mode.
Yeah, I played performance mode, and I didn't see what everyone was talking about, how it played terribly or whatever, or it wasn't optimized.
It definitely stutters, and then when you start getting those big battles, big set pieces, there's a lot of particle effects. You could see it. I could see it. Yeah. I could see the stuttering, and I don't think that's going to go away. I mean, there's a lot. I mean, even with that open battle sequence where there's all that enemy AI in the field. There's an icon that shows up, and then, you know, it's just like there's a lot going on screen. It's just you could just tell the frame rate's, you know, dipping.
Hey guys, I see 126 people in here and only 8 likes. Come on, let's get those likes up. What are you guys doing out there?
38. We only have 38 likes. We should have more than that. Everyone, please hit that like button. There's no reason why I should have 38 likes. But yeah, I would say Nier Automata is also a fair comparison. But I enjoy it. I thought the demo worked well. I didn't have any issues with the combat. I know some diehard Final Fantasy fans are upset about it not being traditional turn-based, but I didn't find it to be an issue.
Yeah, you're always going to get those people that complain. It's just inevitable.
Yeah.
Yeah, as I mentioned to you, I think earlier in the week, like I've never had a problem with the combat systems in Final Fantasy, whether they're ATB, turn-based, or whatever. My main problem with it has just been the pacing and just the fact that I'm not, in general, just not a JRPG design fan. And it looks like talk about the cutscenes in the game being there being more than 11 hours of cutscenes. I assume that those 11 hours are not all within the breadth of the 30-hour, I guess, mainline time you can make on the campaign. But I mean, that just tells me that it's salted with that same kind of flavoring that is the norm for Final Fantasy. So I'll enjoy hearing you guys talking about it, but that'll be about it.
I wonder what the length is on the single player.
Oh shoot, I think it was 45 hours.
Oh, I'm sorry. What was the question?
The length of the single player campaign.
You're supposed to be able to do it within 30 hours.
Okay, I thought I saw 45 somewhere, but okay.
Yeah, I'm like a 15-hour type guy. 15 to 20 is like my sweet spot.
Yeah. It says. I mean, I've seen it. I've seen 30, and then I see 35 to 40. So
yeah,
all depending on kind of the type of gamer you are.
Yeah. Games Radar gave it a 90. It says ditching turn-based combat for combo-heavy melees. Final Fantasy 16 recaptures the spirit of reinvention that the series lends itself to. This new approach to action coalesces with a world you want to explore and an endearing story which is powerfully executed by its voice cast. That's the other thing I've heard about this game too, that the voice acting is well done.
Yeah, for sure.
I thought it was pretty good.
Demo.
Yeah, I definitely enjoyed the voice acting more on with Final Fantasy 16 than I did in 15, and even with the 7 remake. But so Games Radar also says overall Final Fantasy 16 is an experience that sends along the series great. So that has been a kind of a common. That's been something that I've seen brought up in some of the reviews that I've read that this game is up there with some of the best of the series, which I think speaks volumes. I don't recall people saying that about 15. I didn't think 15, if you're interested in the Metacritic, I think it was at a Metacritic about 81. I didn't think 15, I enjoyed it. I didn't think it was great. It wasn't my favorite Final Fantasy 15. Again, I wasn't a big fan of Noctis.
I hated 15.
Yeah, I felt like 15 kind of started off strong and just kind of dragged on, and then
I couldn't deal with like the whole boy band vibes and all that. I couldn't do it.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't care for some of the mini games and the chocobo races, the fishing, the whole ramen thing that they had going on. Like it was like kind of like a commercial. You know what I mean? Like you remember that? Like it was like it was like cup of noodles or something.
It was ridiculous. And then I couldn't deal, like some of the voice acting was atrocious with like Gladios and oh my God.
Yeah, some of the voice acting was pretty bad with Gladio. Noctis wasn't I just didn't care for Noctis. I thought the voice acting for Noctis wasn't really that good either.
They had like camp out. Noctis, fight me.
Yeah. Oh my, that was so funny.
You have to train.
You're not exaggerating. That was some of the dialogue. Yeah. Twisted says 15 was a mishmash. It's probably a great way to describe it. I would agree with that. It was a mishmash. I shouldn't say I totally hated the chocobo races. I mean, they were okay. So that's where 16 is right now in terms of reviews. Hamp, I know it's June. I know it's only June, but this could be up there for Game of the Year, man.
So Zelda and Final Fantasy and possibly Starfield contendees.
I'm trying to get Hamp to make to comment on Game of the Year. So Hamp, what do you think, man?
I'm not even commenting on the dialogue anymore. I put that in the same bucket with the Sean Layden "It's not sustainable" quote.
My goodness!
What about, don't forget about Resident Evil 4 remake, dude.
Oh yeah, that was a good one too.
Well, except for that remakes have a historical tendency of not getting nods for Game of the Year.
They typically don't. Yeah, that's true. It's a good point. But it's one of the better games that I played this year.
Yeah, dude, between Dead Space remake and Resident Evil 4 remake,
I actually really like Dead Space. Looks really good on my computer, by the way, my PC.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I had it running at ultra settings, but anyhow.
I mean, BRAP, why don't you just assume that whatever is the currently running top 5 on Metacritic are the contenders for Game of the Year?
Actually, I will. I'm going to chalk those up right now as Game of the Year contenders. Ham, it's never too early to have Game of the Year conversation, sir.
It is always too early to have Game of the Year conversations until December, until the voting cutoff. It's always too. Jeff Keighley says it's too early.
Hey, isn't
that's
Jeff
why he has? That's why he has a cutoff date.
Isn't Jeff in PlayStation's pockets anyway?
That's true. It's all it's all on the take.
It's all on the take. Never mind that Phil Spencer sits on the board of directors, but
In fact, I think Jeff Keighley is colluding with the CMA on some of those VTCs that I think he attends those VTCs that the CMA has with the FTC.
Oh, you want to know Metroid Prime Remastered. Let me just call that out in the chat. But that main menu music from Metroid Prime Remastered, oh, that shit slaps, dude. It's so good.
I still haven't played that. I know people. I talked to a couple of people who picked up. They were really surprised by how well. They're like, "This isn't a remaster." They're like, "This is a remake."
Oh, it's so good, man. It is so good. And that main menu music had me pumped.
God, I'm still waiting for the next Metroid game. Was it Metroid Prime 4?
I mean, according to Metacritic, the contenders for Game of the Year so far will be The Legend of Zelda: Tears of the Kingdom. I'm gonna discount remasters and remakes. Street Fighter 6, Diablo 4, your favorite contender, BRAP.
Not my favorite contender.
Moss Book 2.
Moss Book's good, apparently.
And Hi-Fi Rush.
There you go, God. Hi-Fi Rush. I guarantee you a lot of the diehard Xbox fans, the live chat, you just made their day by saying Hi-Fi Rush.
Oh, boy.
Hey, but remember last year, Game Logic, when Elden Ring came out, we were all saying Game of the Year. We were right. And that was February.
You guys were. I'll own up to I was the one naysayer who said it wasn't going to make it because I felt God of War Ragnarok would have been the more popular pick.
Yeah.
God of War Ragnarok was it was good, but I don't know. It was kind of just a little bit more just the original God of War.
Yeah, I don't disagree. Yeah. I have some issues with God of War Ragnarok. No, a great game, but I do have some. It's not without its flaws.
Some pacing issues in it as well.
I don't disagree with that. Definitely some pacing issues. Where I'm like, okay, come on, can we just get to the game already? I will say that playing as Atreus was a nice breath of fresh air.
I really feel like God of War Ragnarok, that game was supposed to be like, I think that game was supposed to be 2 games and they just rushed it to make it 1 because they wanted to just move on.
Yeah. But I gotta say, like I said, I enjoy playing as Atreus, but yeah, so I ordered the steel case special edition, so I'm waiting for my steel case to arrive, and Ryan Landis is saying BRAP should call all games Game of the Year contenders for the rest of the year. I'm not going to do that.
Vampire Survivor?
What's that?
Vampire Survivor?
That could be Game of the Year.
Wait, no. Does it fall in the... No, I think that did come out this year, right?
I think so, right? Came out early in the year. I'd have to look. I don't remember.
I could be wrong. I thought it was in a category for last TGAs, but I could be wrong.
Yeah, I feel like you're right on that.
Oh, that was last year. Okay, Twisted Sin just confirmed it last year. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah. That game is drugs, though.
We only have 54 likes, 122 people watching. Please hit that like button. Thank you. I meant to ask you, Basher, are you like? Basher, I'm assuming you're picking up Final Fantasy 16.
Yeah, I already have it ready to go.
You got it queued up, ready to go. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anything else stick out to you about the game that you enjoyed or maybe didn't like from the demo?
Let me think for a second. I'm gonna be honest. Nothing really about that demo stood out to me. Like I had have to really like worry about anything when it comes to the game. I think it's I think it's going to be a really, really good game at the end of the day. I think a lot of people who are going to hate on it are going to be the ones who want that turn-based combat, like the really old school FF diehard fans. But I don't know. I didn't. Nothing really stood out to me besides I didn't beat the demo. I didn't complete it because I started playing it. I got busy, and then I was like, you know what? It comes out soon enough. I think I'm just going to wait and not ruin. Like I'm going to play it through. So I didn't get up to the parts where there was a lot of heavy action on screen with the performance mode. So maybe that's why I can't attest to that. But as far as the game is concerned, I saw really nothing that was indicative of me having to worry about it being a solid experience for 2023 and being a hell of a Sony exclusive.
Yeah, I think this game is. I wouldn't be surprised to see this game do very well.
I think it will. I think it'll sell well. I personally think that they definitely caught an L by not releasing it on PC as well, at least.
Well, that's coming. I thought I read something. It's not coming out for at least 6 months or something. It's not day and date on PC. If it was day and date on PC, I would have purchased it on PC. But it's coming. It's coming later on.
I thought that there was no set date for any like as far as conversations concerned for PC. Mm-hmm. I thought it was just like, oh, this is going to be a PlayStation console exclusive.
Yeah, I think the director was interviewed, and I think the voice track was something like they didn't give a specific date, but the comment was that they were going to take their time with the PC version and make sure it was performant and it took advantage of the PC, and that therefore meant that it wasn't like it was something they were going to turn around in 6 months.
Okay. Yeah. I don't know. I'm not one either that like I'm not going to go back and play a game again if it gets like that new game plus kind of mode scenario, right? Like I look at God of War as a perfect example of that. They released New Game Plus like a year after. I didn't go back and play that. I was already over it. Like if I beat this on PlayStation 5, play it on PS5, I'm not going to go back and play it on PC again, probably. So
yeah, there's very few games I've gone back and played on where I've like played on console and then got it on PC. Yeah, I think for me it just depends on how much I enjoy Final Fantasy 16. If I really enjoy it, then I may go the PC route at a later when it
depends on the mods too. But what the mods do.
So, no interest, right?
Correct. That is accurate.
All right. Maybe one day. Maybe one day Hamp will
just straight cold to the point.
Yeah. We'll pick up a Final Fantasy game. Maybe.
Well, you want to hear. I mean, you want to hear my favorite answer to that, which we always criticize other people for, is
yes.
Maybe one day if it winds up in PlayStation Plus Premium, I'll take a look at it.
Oh, there you go. Okay,
it's a good call.
Yeah, I mean that's not a bad.
I mean that's honestly I think I want to say that I think that is that's the only way I've tried out a Final Fantasy game. Is I tried out the whatever one's in GamePass. Was that Final Fantasy 7 the original?
That would have been the original. Yeah, the original was in Game Pass. Yeah.
Yeah, so I tried that out.
Yeah. Yeah, Gregor Von Doom says it will go to PlayStation Plus Extra eventually. Yeah, we'll see. Maybe it will. Maybe it will.
I don't have time to be bothered with Extra, Gregor Von Doom. I'm subscribed to PlayStation Plus Premium.
Oh, you're on the premium tier.
Oh.
Yeah.
Man knows what he wants.
All right. Do you want to move on from the Final Fantasy 16 conversation? I'm, again, looking forward to playing it. Amazon, if you're listening, please send me an email. Let me know when my damn game's coming. I want my steel case book and all the other goodies that I paid for before I cancel the order. Anyhow. All right. Microsoft is back in the news. Xbox Series X pricing will remain the same in the U.S. It's not going up in the U.S., but it will be going up in other parts of the world. So the Xbox Series X console pricing is going to largely match the price hike that Sony announced for the PlayStation 5 last year. The Xbox Series X will be moving to 479 or 480 if you want to round up pounds in the UK, 550 euros across most European markets, and our Canadian friends are getting it. 650 Canadian dollars, and actually Australia, 800 in Australia.
Oh my
starting
gosh.
August 1st. The Series S pricing will not be adjusted in any of the remaining markets. Also, the Xbox will also, or Xbox will also increase monthly prices of its Xbox Game Pass and Xbox Game Pass Ultimate subscriptions for the first time next month, which will see the Game Pass subscription. The Game Pass subscription for the console will move up from $10.99 a month. Move up from $9.99 a month to $10.99 a month. So there will be no increase. I shall say no increase to PC Game Pass pricing. I'll just leave it at that.
We won. We did it.
Yeah. Game Pass Ultimate will move from $15 a month to $17 a month. And all this will, the increase will start July 6th. So may want to, if you're thinking about re-upping, maybe it's now the time to try to re-up, get it while it's cheaper. But if you are if you're an existing Game Pass monthly subscriber, these new recurring prices won't take effect until August 13th or September 13th in Germany. So I should have mentioned that. I didn't mention that earlier. But new Game Pass members will see the new prices on July 6th. So you have until August 13th if you're
I have a theory.
Yeah.
So obviously we know that, this Xbox Series X is essentially Microsoft's mid-gen refresh. They just put it out earlier. That's not a shock or a surprise to anybody. That's why they said they're not going to have a mid-gen refresh. I really think at this point in time, Microsoft is pushing the Series S more than anything else. Development-wise, everything starts on the Series S. That is essentially, if you look at it, that is their next-gen console for the past 3 years. And I really think at this point in time, they are kind of trying to almost, I'm not going to say dissuade people, but I think that the Series X to them is a luxury for individuals, and I think that the Series S is their next-gen console. And I think that they really want people to just get on Game Pass because their goal at the end of the day is to make Game Pass like the Netflix of gaming. They want it to be on PC, where a large user base is, and they want it to be on TVs, they want it to be on cell phones, they want it to be everywhere. And it's I don't know. I just with this move, it seems to me like they're almost pushing people further away from the idea of going out to buy a Series X. If I got to be honest.
Hamp, I do have one thing to say about this price increase. Remember when the PlayStation increased the price of the PlayStation, when Sony increased the price of the PlayStation 5? You may remember, Logic, we were on this show, we talked about the economic realities of why Sony may be doing that.
Yeah, we were on this show in like a half dozen rants.
Yes.
Because the conversation went on for so long.
Yeah. And you remember how everyone was like, oh, Sony should just take the hit. They should just eat the cost.
Yep.
And it's crazy in light of, the recession, global recession, inflation, the impact of supply chain, the cost of manufacturing and goods going up. People were like, nope, Sony didn't need to do this.
Foreign exchange rates is another keyword we should put in there.
People were sidestepping the reality of foreign exchange rates, and that's a thing that really kind of bugs me a little bit. Like, in light of actual data, people just want to brush it to the side. Oh no, we're not going to pay attention to the facts. We're not going to do that. We're going to run with these narratives that our favorite Xbox podcaster said about Sony being tone deaf and people struggling to put food on the table. That same person hasn't said anything about the Xbox Series X price increase or the price increase to Game Pass.
Yeah, there are so many economical factors in play that people just they're not attuned to. They think because they see a trophy pop on screen they're an expert in Sony merchandise and technologies and what things cost, and it's not that easy.
But it's like, but I'm not hearing, and I just, again, you got to imagine that there's certain economic realities that have impacted, that led to this, or that have led to this price increase by Microsoft for the Xbox Series X.
Yeah, it's called China.
We brought that up too. We talked about the foreign exchange rate, the Japanese yen versus the Chinese yuan, and the power of the dollar, and Microsoft actually benefiting from the dollar being valued as high as I don't know if the dollar stands now compared to the euro logic, but anyhow,
the dollar's taking a beating right now.
So those things, look, those things influence, impact pricing, and we talked about these things. As Logic said, we talked about it on this show and multiple rants, and it's just this is just another example why I don't believe that certain people actually really love gaming as much as they just love championing a corporation. Because when you champion a corporation, this is what happens.
DLW, I think he's got a question here that I just the Series S to Series X mid-gen refresh thing is confusing. It's actually really not that confusing if you think about it. They just wanted to have a mid-gen refresh available to people before Sony did theirs to be ahead of the game. That's pretty much all it comes down to at the end of the day.
I mean, I'm gonna side with DLW. I think it is confusing when you look at the Xbox One and you look at the Xbox One X, and you look about what would have been the natural progression from that console in my mind, from a technology perspective and a performance perspective. It's not the Xbox Series S. I mean, the Series S is, and I think the Series S is a good value proposition. It's a good thing to land in a middle ground for, as I've always contended, right? People who, when I initially got my Series S, I play on, I had it hooked to PC game monitors. I play PC gaming at 1440p. I didn't necessarily need anything else. It gave me access to all the same content that was available on the Series X. We talked about on Crossfire how, at least at that point a year ago, at the beginning of 2022, the saturation of 4K TVs in U.S. households wasn't as widely propagated as some people, would be led to believe who hadn't actually read the statistics. But the problem I have with the notion that the Xbox Series X is their mid-gen refresh is a lot of the commentary about the progression of Xbox is that it was going to, now that it was aligned to x86, that it was going to follow this potential for periodic refreshes that wouldn't necessarily be chained to a console generation. That's why all the all the Xbox fans run around and castigate Sony for saying that we believe in generations. So I mean, what the Series X being its mid-gen refresh really means is that there is no technology step up coming over the next 7 years. And I guess in general, maybe that's okay, because I don't know that we've necessarily seen content that fully takes advantage of the Series X hardware set as it currently exists. And I don't know that I don't believe that the problem is hardware. I think the technology foundation and basis for it is there.
Well, if you look at the specs of the Xbox Series X compared to the S, it would be considered a mid-gen refresh. I mean, just the fact of a AMD processor alone, the fact that it's GPU and the fact that it's in the comparison to probably what I would say like an RTX 3070 as opposed to a Series S that has 512 GB storage, AMD Lockhart. I mean that's more equivalent to like an Xbox One X, where you would look at an Xbox Series X that would be more equivalent to like say a $700 to $800 gaming rig, and then you look at the Series S that would be more comparison to like a $500 gaming rig. You can kind of look at, okay, well, this is obviously technically speaking, a more powerful console, and would probably be the hypothetical if they were to do a mid-gen refresh, but they did not they're wording it as that, but that is essentially where they're going because they're giving you a console that has the power of like a 3070 in it, and they're giving it to you prior to where Sony's going to do that with their PS5 Pro that they're going to release. Because now, I don't think the PS5 at this point in time. I mean, if I think about it, what are they in there? What do they got in there? They got an AMD Oberon, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. And they're, so I don't know. I think that it makes sense from a technical perspective of it being a mid-gen refresh essentially, but they just put it out earlier to guys, I guess, beat Sony to the punch. I guess so maybe
the problem I have with that perspective is that when I look at the Xbox Series X, I don't look at it in comparison to the Series S. Right, I got a Series S because that was the only thing available on the market. But when I look at the progression of technology, I look at what was the practical implementation for the high-end console at the time, given the state of technology. I also don't agree that it's equivalent to a 3070. I think it's more in the 2070, 2080 range. But regardless, the point is that what I would have expected from the available technology at the time is something that's equivalent to the Series X.
No, I can tell you 100% that the Xbox Series X is the same equivalent to, like, say, a Ryzen 7, like a 3700, paired with probably like a 6800 or 3070. It's on that same power wavelength of that. It's just because you haven't seen it output that at this moment in time in these past 3 years does not mean the power is not there, because it is there.
Okay, fine. I think we have documented traceability of what the equivalent of the chipset is. I think we know what the DNA of the chipset is. You can go out and you can look at the PCB trace of the chipset. My point is that the Series X was put out at the point in time that where the evolution of technology was where it is and where it should have been. They haven't necessarily beat PlayStation to the punch. I don't think. And if PlayStation puts out a PlayStation Pro, then we're going to have to compare what PlayStation 5 Pro, then we're going to have to compare those specs to what the Xbox has. But my point is that telling me that the Xbox Series X was a mid-gen refresh and making it seem as if I got a good deal because I bought a $500 piece of technology 2 or 2.5, 3 years ahead of when it would normally have been made available. I just don't agree with that perspective.
Hey, yeah, that's fine.
I mean, when the iPhone 4, I don't look at the iPhone 14 Pro Max as a 2 or 3 year leap ahead from the baseline iPhone 14, right? I look at it. What's the progression?
Logic, yeah.
I look at it. What's the progression from the last phone?
Yeah, I'm not trying to cut you off, but you're basing your logic upon what you've seen output so far, and I agree with you. The output so far from a Series X and what they've been putting out there would be nowhere equivalent to something that you would say, okay, this looks like it comes from a 3070 graphics card, right? We can both agree to that. But that is not talking about the power factor of the system. It's talking about the development factor of the system and what developers have been putting out there. So I can agree with you in the sense of you having that kind of idea where it's like, well, I don't feel like I own a console that is on that same wavelength because I haven't seen anything output to that. And there are people in the comments right in the live chat right now saying, oh, like Redfall, hey, what's going on? But that is the development side of things. That is when developers are not taking full advantage of the hardware when they should have been. Now, specs are specs. Specs don't lie. That's like tech is tech. You can't sit here and say like, oh, just because I haven't seen it doesn't make it real, because the interior of the console is there.
Let me pump the brakes on that right now, because that's not what I said. I said two different statements. I said, number one, Xbox hasn't delivered anything that's taken the full power advantage of that console. That's a separate statement from whether or not the $500 box and the point of technology, which is instantiated within it, right, is commensurate with the cost and the time in which it came out. Two separate statements, both of which I believe are true. The development side of the house hasn't put out content that has taken full advantage of that hardware base. But I also said I don't think that problem is hardware. So I had already said that was a development issue. The second piece of it is that I don't buy that this notion that it was a generational half step that was delivered early at the cost of the high-end console is valid.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think the idea, the ideology that Xbox has in mind too as well. I mean, Xbox for them right now, their big thing is Game Pass, and that like the Series S is their Game Pass machine. That is their main bread and butter. That's what they're focusing on. And the Series X is like their like, hey, this is our PS4 Pro, if you were to use an example, right? Like, so is it a mid-gen refresh from like a time perspective and like the way they put it out there? No, but like that's kind of what they're looking at it as at this point in time. Do I agree with it? Do I think it's good advertising? Absolutely not. I think it's just asinine to sit there and say like, hey, this is our mid-gen refresh if you all were waiting for it. But at the same time, there is no shadow of doubt that Sony is going to be putting out a mid-gen refresh. That is absolutely going to happen. And they just essentially at this point in time are using that narrative to say, well, this is our mid-gen refresh because, our main console is the Series S. That's what sells the most. That's where people put Game Pass on the most. That's where, people play their games the most. And that's our main console. And I mean, that's their narrative. That's what they're going to go with. And that's it. That's all. I mean, I don't, it's really not that hard to kind of understand that. I'm not saying I agree with it. I'm not saying like I'm for it or I'm a proponent. Like I'm saying that's just what they are going to be doing. And that's their goal at the end of the day. They don't want to sell. And that's where I also start to lean into the category of like, I don't believe for 1 second that Microsoft in the next 5 to 10 years I think there's a possibility they might not even be in the console race anymore. I think that they are that's their bread and butter. I think that they want to develop Game Pass and make it something that is the Netflix of gaming. Now, whether that would work or not, I don't know.
Yeah, real quick. Let me, Worry Word's been here patiently waiting. I'm sorry, Worry. What's going on, Worry? Thank you for jumping.
Hey guys, how you doing? I'm fine. I was just,
yeah.
Trying.
Sorry to keep you waiting, man.
Oh no, I don't care. I'm not doing much of anything except staring at the screen, waiting for Devil May Cry 7 to start at 12 o'clock.
Devil May Cry 7.
So let me mention a couple of things that the Master Man. So I agree with you that wrapping your head around the conceptualization of that marketing statement isn't hard. I think the problem with consumers buying into its credibility is, and I totally agree with you. I mean, BRAP and I have been going back and forth. And Mooch was on here last week, and we talked about it a little bit as well. I think the series, I personally think that the Series S is a bigger mover for them right now. I think from a consumer perspective, if you are, depending on what spectrum of gaming you're aiming at, the Series S is definitely a viable option if what you want is a Game Pass box, right? I don't know that there makes sense to go out and buy the $500 box if the Series S, right, is going to do mostly what you need, which is access to a catalog and a library. And I think it sits very well in that spot on the market. I think the concern I have is where that marketing line synchronizes with the reality that we're accustomed to. And what I mean by that is when the Xbox One Scorpio came around and that was their mid-generation refresh, there was a lot of apparent tangible value that was being delivered in the Series X because the voice track that went along with it was all the games that would be automatically buffed by additional features and capabilities that the Scorpio delivered just by you playing the games that were already deployed. And then there was a rolling wave of games that were listed every month that were getting additional Xbox One X enhancements added to them. That product differentiation at the software layer isn't necessarily apparent between the Series S and the Series X. And again, that does tie to what's being delivered in this generation. Maybe it should arguably be, maybe that should be more apparent, but I don't necessarily know that it's as tangible as people felt it was in the messaging from the last generation. So I just think there are some problems with, and the other problem is that this dialogue that this was a mid-generation refresh, this was not present at the beginning of this generation. This is a thing that's being bandied about now. And obviously what people are going to believe, at least some people are going to believe, is that it's now being bandied about as an excuse or a reason to explain why and where they are competitively within the market. That's why to me it's just a nothing burger. I'm like, if they want that to be their explanation, my response is, well, so what? What tangible difference does that make to me as a consumer? It doesn't make any. It doesn't alter my expectations as a consumer when I'm doing business and market analysis. Yeah, I mean, I was talking to BRAP this week. I went on to the Xbox store and was just looking at the games, and I filtered on $70 games that were available. I'm sorry, yeah, $70 games that were sitting in the store bestsellers list, right? And there weren't that many, which causes me to question. And I was looking at the content that was on the store, and kind of where in my head I ranked those games between AA, AAA, etc. It seems like there is more of a smoothing and trajectory of games that are at kind of the mid-grade level and less of kind of the summer blockbuster level that seems to occupy the vast majority of the store and be the stuff they put in your windshield and be the stuff that they push to you. And the things of like the Starfield level and the Forza level, right, we're setting the expectation that they're going to be less than those. You listen to Matt Booty's soundtrack of, 2.5 years ago, it was, we want to get out 4 AAA first-party games a year. Now it's just, we would just want to get 4 games out a year. And some of the games that he listed as counting for this year were Minecraft Legends and Hi-Fi Rush, right? So that to me is a walking back from expecting to get, Forza, Starfield, and two other kind of summer blockbusters in the year, which again I think is fine, and that's a fine business strategy to have. It's just it paints a story that to me is different than what we were hearing for 2 years.
I think the narrative as a whole, the reason why overall we see a narrative like change and shift is because of technology shifting and like in the world, right? So like if you look at Xbox right now, I think Xbox's main goal at the end of the day is to be part of the most up-to-date technology that is going to be the case. And unfortunately, I hate to kind of let the cat out of the bag here, but xCloud and cloud-based gaming is the future. That's where we are inevitably going to arrive, whether we like it or not. There is no future to which we sit here and we play games and we have consoles forever in our living room unless we decide to do so. And this is something to which is becoming more because of comfort and because of like that whole kind of Netflix ideology of saying, hey, Blockbuster died and people don't go rent movies anymore because you can just turn on your TV and go watch a movie at any point in time now with streaming services. This is where we are all going. This is where the future is sitting. And I know it's not there yet because it's hard to see it when you have a network infrastructure and an internet infrastructure that the United States has. But if you go to Japan and you go to these like really high-tech cities, cloud-based gaming is already there. And that is why you have instances like with Activision Blizzard and what's happening with that, where things get shut down because they say, okay, well, if Xbox wins this, they're going to have a monopoly on that cloud-based gaming sector of things with all these companies that they own. But it's the inevitable fact is that the consoles and hardware boxes sitting in our living rooms and in our houses is eventually going to be the next blockbuster, where we will not need that anymore. Where we will be at a point in time where we can literally turn on any device, smart device that we own, and play a game that is streaming from a cloud that works the way we would see it on a console. Now, whether that be 5 to 10 years from now, I don't know. But I can tell you, when it comes
it's not 5 to 10 years from now. It's not even that close.
It's going to happen, though. So
right,
I think
but that's like telling somebody, let me just jump in here. First off, that's like telling somebody in the 1800s that eventually automobiles are going to take over. So throw away your horse and carriage today. It makes absolutely no sense. The second thing is,
I agree with you.
If the Series S was Microsoft's leader for this generation, then they would have led with the Series S. Instead, they led with the Series X on stage with Jeff Keighley, and then the narrative shifted to the Series S being the main console, and the X is the mid-generation upgrade. So I don't swallow any of that stuff all of a sudden that the S was their plan all along, because all I heard from them from the beginning was that the Series X was the most powerful console ever created. Then it became the most powerful Xbox ever created. And now, like Hem said, all of a sudden the narrative is Series S is really our device and the X is just this mid-generation offering that we thought of way before anybody else. This is just this new strategy that we came up with. Not that the Series S isn't a smart move, because if anybody's going to buy anything Xbox, they're buying the Series S and Game Pass with it. But again, the whole idea that streaming is the future. I mean, I think they just said a while ago, most people are buying their games over subscribing to our services, and most people are buying PlayStation 5s over an Xbox Series S. If Microsoft's idea was that the Xbox Series S was a competitor to what Sony was putting out with the PlayStation 5, I don't buy that at all. I think it's nice now to say it. It's certainly a convenient way to sort of pivot away from what's been happening. But, I don't buy that the Series S was this plan from the beginning, because they would have led with it. They wouldn't have announced the Series X on stage. They would have announced the Series S. And what
you're talking about right now is business fluctuations, right? Like,
I'm not. I don't want to get into any of that. All I'm doing is taking the simplest explanation and saying it has to be the correct one.
And I'm going to make it really simple for you. They thought and they led with an idea of being the Series X being their bread and butter and their picture. And then lo and behold, 3 years later, they see that the Series S is selling more than the Series X. So the way business works and the way we know it to work is that, hey, we're going to start leaning this direction because this is where we're making our money.
But I had thought you had said earlier that the Series S was their plan all along to be the leader and their next generation offering.
I said that now, the narrative now from Microsoft is that the Series S is their next gen console and that the Series X is their mid-gen refresh from their mouths, not from mine. This is from their mouths. Now, what you're sitting here saying is like, why did they lead with the Series X? Why did they say this was their thing? And then now they're changing their tune. Well, that's because just like everything else that sells well, you go where the money is, because that's how business works. And that's exactly what we're seeing now. We're not going to see them say, okay, well, a console that costs more money to make from a hardware perspective that we're losing more money on, we're going to focus on that and not on something that costs less money to make that we're making more money on.
But they would have already known from the beginning that the Series S would sell more because it was the cheapest offering in the market.
How would they? No, they're not going to know that from the beginning.
Why would they make it cheaper then?
They made it cheaper because they thought, okay, for a person
they wanted to sell, right?
Correct. Yes.
Right.
But I don't think they thought from a next gen perspective, just like, because you're looking at Sony, right? And you're using Sony as a comparison, right? PlayStation 5 is the highest selling console. They probably believed in themselves, like, okay, we can compete with the PlayStation 5 and put a console out there that is just as powerful, okay? And that turned out not to be the case. What turned out to be the case is that now Game Pass is successful. They can run 90% of their Game Pass games on a Series S comfortably, okay, without any kind of hitches. And the Series S costs less to make, and it's selling more. So now the conversation changes in the boardroom. Now it's not anymore about, oh, we should still be leaning on a Series X because that's our next-gen bread and butter. No, now it's like, okay, well, this is what's selling the most. This is what we're making most money on. Game Pass runs well on it. We can get it to all these people very easily. They can afford it. So now let's have this conversation.
I must have misheard what you guys were talking about, because I heard distinctly that the Series S was the leading platform and the Series X was always the mid-gen refresh, and then I heard Hemp come in and counter that. So I don't know. Maybe the whole discussion is fluid here, but to me, the idea that if you're out there telling people that the Series S was always the idea, which is what Microsoft is doing lately, I just don't buy that. And I don't see why anybody else would buy that.
Yeah,
based on what they've done from the beginning.
Yeah, let me grab a super chat real quick, Worry. Jeppy Gaming with the $5 super chat. Thank you, Jeff. Says Series X bottleneck with split memory, underclocked CPU, only 2 IOs, no SSD compression. Thank you for that super chat, Jeppy Gaming. Appreciate it. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Worry.
No. I'm sorry. I'm good. That's all. I just I don't buy Microsoft's messaging that. I mean, great things change.
I agree with you 100%. I don't think it's the best messaging. I don't think the advertising is fluid across, but I mean, it's business at the end of the day.
So I guess where I'm kind of a little confused here is did Microsoft come out and say officially that the Series X is in fact their mid-gen refresh?
They didn't, but they led their entire generation when they announced their next generation. They led with the Series X. on stage with Jeff Keighley.
No, they absolutely did. No,
so clearly their
Project
idea,
Scarlet,
which changed, over time, of course, but their idea was the Series X was the most powerful console ever. Then it was the most powerful Xbox ever. And now we're at Series S's really our offering because it sells the most. And that's fine. But my argument is if people are out here saying this was the plan all along, I don't
think that's what people are saying. And to be fully transparent here, this is not me like trying to defend Xbox in any way. To be honest with you, I don't agree with the advertising or the verbiage they're using in any way, shape, or form. I just think that at the end of the day, they got caught with their pants down in a sense of something selling more than what they expected it to sell. I think that they thought that they can play hardball in a next gen territory with PlayStation 5. That turned out not to be the case. And now they're going to lean more into, like, from a business perspective, they're going to lean more into the conversation of like, hey, where are we making the most money? As any business would. I don't think there's any business on the planet Earth that would say, hey, we're losing money here. We're not making any money. Let's concentrate on this. I mean, it's just not the way it's going to work.
I just want to clarify something here, Basher, because I heard you say that Microsoft said that that the Series X was their mid-gen refresh. Did they say that? So that
I don't know where Basher's getting it from, and you can correct. So where I know that it's coming from, where it has come from. Not saying this is why Basher's saying it, but this is why the community has glommed onto it.
Yeah.
Is because it was mentioned in a Digital Foundry video that's what they were told by Microsoft.
Correct. Yes. Correct.
Oh,
yes.
the Digital Foundry. Okay, that's right. Thank you. So Basher, that's where that's coming from. That's right. John Linneman said that when they were told that by Microsoft. I'm assuming this is when they went out to Redmond and because they go out. Remember, they went out and they did the Series X, unboxing, and they had it in front of them. Maybe they're saying that Microsoft said that to them at that time.
Yeah, and so here's what I think, and I track and follow, and there are pieces of what you mentioned, Betcher, that I agree with and I understand. But here's where I've largely had a problem with what Xbox has been doing over the last few years. And you're right, it's largely about messaging. And I guess my personal approach from working in the technology sector, and if you like this piece, you can be one of the people who goes to Microsoft and tells them that they should hire me, because I often come up with these things that Microsoft could do better at. So here's my thing. My personal approach is, if you F up, right? If you make a bad call, if you make a bad projection, if you thought something was going to unfold and it didn't turn out that way, you just own up to it. You just say, hey, years ago, we launched the Xbox Series X. We felt that it was going to do better, perform better on the market, that it was going to be more attractive to our consumers. But what we found over time is that people are actually more interested in the market is actually more interested in the Xbox Series S. It's price competitive. It compares very well to the Nintendo Switch, where it is head and shoulders above it from a technology perspective. It has access to a content and catalog that is differentiated from what's available on the Switch, and people tend to buy that maybe over the Switch or even as a secondary console for people who already have a PlayStation 5 or people who already have a PC. It plays well with parents who choose to go after it and buy it for, children in their household, because they can buy it, they can set parental controls on it, they can sign them up for GamePass, and as I always say, then you have a gaming box for a small child in the household, and you don't have to worry about them constantly coming to you, bothering you, asking you to buy them the next game that's coming around the corner, because it's there on Game Pass. So my point is that they could have that narrative, but what is missing from it, from my perspective, from a messaging standpoint, is the rest of the story that talks about how they're repositioning it within the market and how they're looking at the market. And I think on the approach to the middle of the console generation, that to me is acceptable. That to me is more acceptable than an attempt to walk back with pieces of a story. And that is a criticism that I've also layered against Sony. I have talked on this show ad nauseum about, Sony, particularly at the beginning of the generation, had a very muddled messaging, and Jim Ryan in particular did bad at a lot of things. He had the handoff from Sean Layden with all the, mealy mouth speaking to crossplay, when the reality was it wasn't a technology problem, it wasn't an account problem. It was a They were trying to figure out how to get their ducks in a row and come up with this revenue parity clause and take care of the money that they perceived that they were going to lose to enable crossplay on PlayStation, right? And they tried to sidestep that. They were constantly guilty of giving half stories, right? The whole, Spider-Man, Miles Morales pricing thing, the whole thing of, of Horizon Forbidden West, you're going to get this game at $60, but it's the last time, right? Flash forward to now, and I think pricing and PlayStation and everything that goes along with it, I get it, right? I understand where they are, where the messaging is, but they went through a bathtub of about 2-3 years where they were doing a bad job at that. And I feel like that's where Microsoft
Nobody's
is
going to argue
now.
that. Yeah, nobody's going to argue that. I mean, listen, you got a spade's a spade. You have to call it out where you see it. Like, has the messaging been the greatest? Has the advertising been the greatest? No. And like at the end of the day, is it the best for these companies to go out and say something and then change their verbiage 3 years down the line? Absolutely not. But it happens all the time. I mean, companies release products that they claim to be everything and more. Apple is very guilty of that. And then they never step back and say, hey, we should have done this better, or we messed up here. They just make something new, or they make something that's going to be, selling the most, or that's going to be making them the most money. I mean, that's just, again, not to keep reiterating that, but that's just the way business works. And does it suck? Yeah, because at the end of the day, consumers are the ones that pay for that. I mean, there are plenty of people out there that went out and bought a Series X because they were like, hey, this is the next gen Microsoft experience.
I was one of them.
Yeah, and they did not get that. And that is something to which sucks. And that's 100% correct. But I mean, also you have to look at it that you can't just say that Microsoft is the only company guilty of this. There are plenty of companies that have done this time and time again, and that is just the strategy of business. But people still buy their stuff. They still do the song and dance, and we still do that kind of same conversation over and over and over again. So I don't know. I agree with you in what you're saying, and I agree with the irritation in it. But at the end of the day, I think you have to look at it very basically and just say like, hey, listen, they're focusing on something that is making them the most money when they're not really making the most money. They're third place in the market. Sony's dominating them from console sales. Nintendo is dominating them. So they're going to start to lean more on things that are going to bring them revenue, and that's just the nature of the beast at the end of the day.
So I think, I think this will be my last thing before, because I know BRAP wants to cover the price increase topic. I think the difference I have is, number one, because everybody's doing it doesn't mean that I have to find it acceptable. Two, and I've studied Microsoft for a very long time. I don't necessarily feel that they've handled everything this way. So I don't think this is them repeating a pattern or complying with the way other businesses approach it. When you go back to Windows Phone, Microsoft readily admitted that they got beat at the phone game, and that they were pivoting to a strategy that made more sense for them and going to their strengths. That it didn't make sense for them to try and put hardware in their own mobile operating system and yada, 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 that it made more sense to simply make their software available for other operating systems and to become agnostic to what hardware platforms it went on. The third piece I'll mention is the problem with this walk back is Microsoft's not getting out of gaming. I completely agree with you that eventually we're going to go towards cloud. I have also mentioned that, hand in hand with that will be the whole planet going to more of a distributed computing structure, rather than everybody having PCs on their desks that are, even consoles on their desks that they use for a tenth of the time. It's not commensurate with the cost that we pay for them. But the point is that Microsoft isn't getting out of the gaming business, even when they go cloud. And so there's still a need for them to cultivate confidence in them and their decision making and their productization that needs to extend to that as well, in order to pull a base along with them and then grow that base. Because the whole point of pivoting is for them to experience growth. And so if they continue this pattern of bad messaging, they're not going to gain that confidence in their product. They're not going to gain the confidence in their production pipeline. They're not going to gain the confidence in their commitment to a strategy, which is another thing that I hear resonating from lots of consumers, which is that they don't see the commitment from Microsoft in its own strategy, which starts to have them viewed along the same spectrum as a Google, of them getting into stuff from the gaming perspective and then walking it back, getting out of it, fishtailing around, pivoting, and seeming as if they're uncertain of where they're going to go. I think that's one thing that attracts a lot of PlayStation fans, and I completely agree with you that PlayStation's now moving in the direction of this live service thing, and whenever there's any notion that they're doing something different, right, then lots of PlayStation fans cry out. But I think one thing that attracts people to PlayStation is their perception that there's a consistency and there's a confidence and a faith in what their strategy is.
For now, there's a consistency.
Yeah,
for now.
And speaking to you bet your growth logic. According to Sarah Bond, Game Pass subscribers are on PC. Those numbers are up 46% year over year. And
yeah.
And then with the price increase, I kind of rubbed it, in
they're up 46% from what though?
Well, we don't know. I mean,
it's the same voice track as Azure, right? It's we've experienced X percentage of growth. Well, X percentage of growth of what? But I mean, but it's there, right? I mean, it's growing and showing strength. I guess.
And I bring it up because we know Piscatella had reported Matt Piscatella reported that console subscriptions have kind of hit a wall. But according to Sarah Bond, Game Pass subscription on PC are up 46% year over year. And it's a fair question. 46% year over year. What number? We don't know. But with the price increase, with particularly with Game Pass, we're not seeing an increase to Game Pass, the Game Pass subscription, but we are seeing it on console. And granted, it's like $1 for regular Game Pass. I think $3 for Game Pass Ultimate. But I did see people, kind of to your point, Logic, who felt, I saw this on Twitter today. I know Twitter's a small sample size, but felt like, hey, wait a minute, like why is it the PC crowd getting a price increase? We seem to be getting the short end of the stick here now. I've seen some people say it. I've seen it here in the live chat. I know very small sample size, but some people saying things like, hey, are they focusing on PC now? Is the Xbox console not the focus anymore? And I think those conversations are happening for some of the things you just mentioned, Logic, and for some of the other things like we're seeing with these price increases on console, but not necessarily those increases happening on PC as well. So, but I do want to go back to the price increase thing because we talked about it, Logic, again when it happened with PlayStation, and what I was getting at was. This is why I caution people not to root for corporations, and this is why I doubt that some people really truly love video games, because the same people that were criticizing PlayStation about increasing the cost of the PlayStation 5 in light of we talked about Game Logic, the foreign exchange rate, inflation, the cost of manufacture and distribution, those things going up post pandemic. Those things have impacts to the decisions that businesses make. And no, it's not a business can eat up profits or eat up revenue because they can and they should. That it's not that one company's more pro-consumer than the other. These companies are motivated by bottom line. And so this is a reminder to me, and should be for people who console war, how foolish these individuals look when they pom-pom for corporations when we hear news like this. So that was my only point.
Especially, I guarantee 99% of those people are also the same people who use the keep that same energy argument all the time.
Exactly, and they're not doing that right now. So,
one thing we should point out just for completeness. So the price increases for Game Pass are going up globally, with the exception of Norway, Chile, Denmark, Switzerland, and Saudi Arabia. So there are exceptions. There are exceptions.
Thank you for bringing that up. Yep. Absolutely.
I think it's hard to attest to a company and the decisions they make, like Microsoft, in some ways, just due to the fact that how big they are as a company. I think if you're going to sit here and say like, hey, let's have this company like look at every single consumer as a solo consumer spending money on our products when we make so much money to begin with. Like, that's where I kind of lean on the same side as BRAP here with corporations and how they work, right? Like Sony, I believe this wholeheartedly. I think the reason why Sony puts out amazing products and games is because that is their bread and butter at the end of the day. But Microsoft, let's not forget here for 1 second, they don't really make money on gaming. They make money on Azure servers. Just from a technological perspective, like if they were to lose gaming as a whole, I don't really think it would affect them one bit. And that to me is kind of an issue, because it's like if something is not your most important thing because you're not really making the most money on it, how do you expect the suits, these guys that run these companies at the end of the day, to really even make it a big deal to keep things consistent? It's like kind of like Walmart, right? Everybody shops at Walmart. Everybody goes to Walmart. And I mean, Walmart's like it's a shit store, but everybody shops there. They still make so much money at the end of the day. So it's like, I don't know. I think that corporations as a whole, it's hard to convince them otherwise. I think the only time you'll see change in a corporation or change in the way they do things is if you're really hitting their pockets hard and they're starting to lose a shit ton of money. I think that if Sony were to see a lot of their, players drop off because of them leaning more into the live service department of things, and like their story-driven content that people know and love starts to go away, I think they would change their tune once again. And I think they would start leaning more in that direction, because they'd be like, hey, this is what brought us all these people. I think Microsoft is a different conversation, because, I mean, at the end of the day, they're a $198 billion company as of 2022. So it's hard to argue facts like that, I guess, is where I'm going with that.
So I try to tell BRAP every day that Walmart is a crap store, and I don't understand why he shops there. But one other thing we should point out, so because somebody pointed this out to me, and I did kind of one of my longer threads on Twitter.
Hey, we're not going to slander Walmart today, by the way.
About the price increase. One thing that should be noted is that last year across February and March of 2022, several countries actually had their prices of Game Pass cut. They were actually pretty significant price increases, in some cases as much as 20%. And so those countries are getting a price increase, but the price increase still doesn't raise them above the U.S. equivalent price increase. So they're kind of being price reset, but aren't experiencing a net increase given the cut that they got last year.
Yeah, that's a great point, Hap. That's absolutely true. I think someone else may have brought that up in the live chat too, if I'm not mistaken. But
that's small. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, that those countries are kind of in the noise. But just to be fair and even-handed, to let everybody have a voice, and so that was Singapore, India, and South Africa.
Okay, gotcha. Okay. All right, I'm sorry. Give me a sec here. I just lost the article. I want to make sure I didn't miss anything here in the article with regarding the price increase. No, I think that's it. Yeah, Warren, any thoughts on the price increase?
I don't really have any thoughts on that at all. I mean, when it comes to, it's hard for me to get excited about anything when it comes to Microsoft. I know I sound terrible, but I'm just waiting for a good game to come out that I can get excited about. I think it's going to be Starfield. I'm excited about that. I don't know. It just seems like there's this playbook, and it seems really simple to me. Just make some good games. You don't have to. The idea that you have all this money and it's hard to focus on certain things because you're so big. You could have 10 kids, but you've got to love them all. So they've got to pay attention to gaming a little bit more than they have been. And if they're not interested in making great games because that's not where they make their money, then I think a lot of their problems would disappear if they just went third party and became a service provider and got out of the console space. So as far as raising prices and stuff like that, I don't think that that's really going to make a difference one way or the other in terms of who's buying an Xbox and who isn't buying an Xbox.
Yeah. That's yeah. Go ahead, Logic.
I actually think it. I mean, I think it will figure into some people's minds. I think we still have a chunk of consumers and you have new consumers coming into the space every day who are going to weigh the numbers and are going to look at them. And some of the things that I looked at today is, whether you agree with the optics or not, now for a Game Pass Ultimate subscription, you will pay 1.7 times the same amount that somebody pays for PlayStation Plus Premium. And now that's granted if you do PlayStation Plus Premium upfront for the annual price, but I don't discount that because there is no Game Pass equivalent of that essentially. And so I and then you look at the potential that there's this PlayStation 5 bundle coming out that's bundling 2 years of PlayStation Plus Premium. I think it's going to be a decision factor that some consumers do weigh, who are looking at what box am I getting for in the subscription service that's gonna go along with it.
Yeah, if that rumor's true with the PlayStation 5 bundling PlayStation, I think it's the PlayStation Plus Premium. Is that?
Yeah. So PlayStation Plus Premium, you pay $120 if you pay annual upfront. The price of a Game Pass Ultimate subscription is going to be $204. The other thing is, some people were, I think, positive about PC Game Pass, sticking with its price. But I'm like, you only get that price if you're only playing on PC. Like, as far as I know, and I've seen banter that may not be the case, but as far as I know, if you pay $10 a month for PC Game Pass, I don't believe you're also entitled to Game Pass on an Xbox.
You'd have to get Game Pass Ultimate. Yeah.
I don't think for one second there's really any point other than getting Game Pass on PC. I think that's the best place to get it, and I think that I don't know. I just think that Microsoft should really concentrate on that.
I don't disagree with you. I think this is Microsoft, and again, not a bad thing, not a criticism of Microsoft, but it's for me them Game Pass being on PC and the support that the availability of their first party stuff on PC is one of the reasons why I decided to just cut ties from the console. I just didn't need it. There wasn't any, and they weren't releasing anything that really made me that where I felt compelled to play a first party title only on the Series X. It's just But I guess if that rumor is true, the PlayStation 5 and the bundling the 2 years of PlayStation Plus Premium, that could be an attractive option, I think, for consumers, who are maybe looking at dipping their toes in a subscription service or looking for some additional value when they buy it. When they're out there considering when they're out there thinking about what new console they want to buy. You think about I think you said 900 games come with PlayStation Plus Premium. Is that?
Yeah, I mean that's what was in the catalog when I looked at the and did a count of everything that's in the entire PlayStation Plus Premium catalog. I mean, I think that'll weigh in, particularly if people are doing the math between a Series S and a digital PlayStation 5 and that $50 differential. That obviously that $50 differential is less than the differential between PlayStation Plus Premium, right, and Game Pass Ultimate. So that may cause people who are doing that math to just lean in and say, the PlayStation 5 digital version definitely makes more sense when I think about how much I'm going to spend on a subscription.
Yeah.
Can I say I'm so worried? Like, I'm legitimately worried about PlayStation and what I saw at their last conference. Like, I'm a huge PlayStation fan. And I'm so worried about just gaming as a whole and everybody just leaning to gas now and games as a live service and just that whole Sony, the thing that I love most about Sony product games and just going away completely. It's super concerning for me. I know a lot of people watched that conference and they were like, yeah, it sucked. Yeah, whatever. And it's I looked at that conference and I was like, oh my God, is this where everyone's going now? And are we in the last stages of seeing these big huge titles like the God of Wars and the Last of Us and all the stuff that we know and love go away completely? I mean, it's a possibility.
Yeah, I'm not worried. I'm just not. I mean, I think this is them. I mean, look, there's money to be made, and they're making money off of they're making money off their single player stuff too. They are actually approaching, if you look at their sales numbers for some of their first party titles, they're approaching Nintendo numbers now. Almost Nintendo numbers. I think unless the demand for those types of games completely goes away for them, I don't see them leaving money on the table like that. I could be wrong, but I don't see that happening.
I also worry about people like our age and like the older demographic, right? And like the newer aged gaming, like the kids, right? The kids that are playing these games and like what they're playing the most of. And it's like, you know, I'm honest in that sense, right? Like me, you, I don't know how old Game Logic is, and I know Warrior Ward is on the older side.
Warrior's 28. Yeah. But I mean, look, we talked about your gaming history earlier, but I think what's happened is that the pot's gotten so big. I think you just have different markets or different addressable markets within gaming now, or different consumers who want different types of gaming experiences. And I think that's what you're seeing. I don't necessarily think that, I see a lot of people say, "Oh, gas, everything's going to gas. It's the sky's falling." I don't agree with that. I mean, we just talked about Final Fantasy 16. We just talked about Starfield earlier. We talked about Devil May Cry 5. We talked about Elden Ring. We talked about all these other these primarily non-gas games. And you look at the development pipeline of some of the major publishers that are also investing in non-gas games. I just think this is a natural evolution for PlayStation. They see there's money on the table. They want to make more money. That's what Jim Ryan is tasked with doing. I don't see them completely going away from single-player campaigns, single-player games, especially if there's a demand for those types of games from Sony first party. I think Jim Ryan's even said, "Hey, look," and I'm paraphrasing, but he said something to the effect that, look, our first party they're going to continue doing what they do, and then we have these other studios that are going to focus on more multiplayer type experiences.
Yeah, but you're always going to have third parties that make single player games too. It's not like they're going to go away. So if you have a majority of an audience on one platform, they're going to buy their third party games there as well.
Yeah, and I think like we talk about our kids too. I think even with my kids, they're so. I mean, they play the ones that do my two sons that do game. They do play, games like Minecraft, Roblox, but they're also playing single player stuff too, and they're equally as interested in single player games. They'll actually bounce off between Roblox, and they'll go play a single player game, and then maybe go back to Minecraft or go back to a single player. And so I think the difference with the younger generation. And I think this kind of goes back to what you, Basher, and Game Logic were saying earlier, is that I think the way that my kids will access games probably will look a little bit different than how we did. That they may be accessing games on a smart device via cloud streaming. But I don't think that the content's going to drastically change. I could be wrong. I mean, how far I know, everything could be gas, and then my kids could be buying up NFTs like no one's business, but I just don't see that happening. I don't think I just think that the pot's gotten so bigger and that there's just a variety of flavors now, and people want different things, and that's what we're seeing, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I think another thing to keep in mind, I mentioned this to, the target audience was not commensurate with the message I was trying to put across. So, because some other people brought this up, and the thing is, like in the gas space, it'll be interesting to see how it plays out. But I would contend in the gas space, the gas space is limited. It is highly driven by gravity, meaning that the addressable market and the player base coalesce around a very small number of titles. And there's not a lot of spreading the wealth going around, in my opinion. The things that really move the needle and that you really hear the big stories about are a fairly small number. And so while there's money to be made in that space, you're only making that money if you make a big splash, you attract a large number of players, and you maintain that player base. And what we've seen over the last decade is that there's not a ton of games, right, that can achieve that. And that's why you see on that end of the market a small number of titles, and then you see companies managing portfolios, making other bets in other genres and other design vectors. And so I think kind of like Brap and Warrior saying, yeah, there's going to be some plays at games as a service, but the ones that people stick with are going to be fairly small in number from a company perspective, right? The numbers that they stick with. The rest of it is going to continue to be the smattering of the other content, right? That I think is akin to kind of what we're seeing now.
Yeah, no, that's a great point, Game Logic. Warrior, do you have any? I do want to wrap up the show here. Do you have any other additional thoughts here, Warrior, with like gas, Sony investing?
I just think I just think when you look at a company like EA and how they've at one point in time it was all gas going forward, and now they've scaled back so much that you've got Star Wars Outlaws. I mean, I'm sorry, Ubisoft. Now you've got Star Wars Outlaws, and even EA has scaled back their games as a service. So again, like Fortnite, Call of Duty, you're right. There's only, I don't even think I can name 5 huge games as a service titles that have maintained their player base over, say, 10 years. Maybe Fortnite, obviously one. Call of Duty. It's not Halo.
Apex
Legends, yeah. So it's hard to make that next Fortnite. It certainly can be done, but I don't know if PlayStation can do that. And I don't think that they're going to, necessarily walk away from what makes them money. I think they're going to try and diversify, surely. But, if they did do that, if they did, all of a sudden just forget the lesson learned, even going from, the biggest selling console of all time, the PlayStation 2, to the blunder and the hubris that led to the PlayStation 3. If they go back to that, then that's on them, surely. But I never really saw games as a service as something that you should put all your eggs into that basket. I just don't see that. I think even Microsoft, learned that lesson, and you're seeing like a bevy of single player role playing games announced by them that look really good, like Clockwork Revolution. Not something I would see coming from Microsoft 5 years ago. Even something like a Starfield, which obviously isn't Microsoft. It is Microsoft now, but Bethesda. And a lot of their other titles like Hi-Fi Rush. Who saw that coming from a Microsoft? So, I think they're going to obviously keep pushing games as a service because that's what's going to keep people on Game Pass. The perpetual, revolution of doing these mindless things in video games, and every once in a while paying for something like a skin or something like that. But I'm still seeing, even from Microsoft, I'm seeing single player content announced like at the showcase. I have less of a fear of everyone jumping in bed with games as a service, and quality content. In my opinion of what quality content is in video games is single player narrative story characters and things like that. So I don't think those are in any danger of going anywhere anytime soon.
Well, one thing else. Yeah. One thing I want to say for on the back of that, and then I'll shut up for the night, Brap, because you're trying to wrap up, is something that's super interesting because Rory mentioned Ubisoft. And if you watch the Ubisoft conference, there was a point, I want to say, I think maybe at the midpoint of the conference, where they kind of did a sizzle reel. And that sizzle reel was largely of their things that, I guess in my mind, I still think of them as games as a service, right? That it was a mixture of season pass stuff and DLC.
Yeah.
And the thing that was super amazing to me about Ubisoft is not only are they doing the single player stuff, right? But they are also supporting all of these things that are a mixture of single player stuff that is getting continued DLC, games that have co-op, games that have competitive multiplayer. That's just kind of amazing. It's a whole business that kind of flies underneath the radar that nobody really talks about. But I looked at stuff that came by in that sizzle reel, and Riders Republic is still getting content. For Honor is still getting season passes and updates. Trackmania is still getting content. The Division 2 is still getting content. And I mean, we have all this hate for Ubisoft and like them being repetitive and okay, fine, I get that. But Far Cry 6, but they're doing something and they figured something out it's going to be interesting to see if other publishers do as well. And what those things drive is the crew is another thing. They drive this strength of community, which is a drumbeat that we're hearing more and more from Microsoft now, that they want to build games that have these communities coalesce around them, that they're concerned about MAU is right their primary KPI now. So it'll just be interesting to see how that unfolds.
Yeah, that's a great point about Ubisoft, by the way. And to Warrior's point, like, Ubisoft and EA were kind of for a while seemingly doubling down on gas and have kind of.
Where's my Splinter Cell remake
recently? Well, we're all waiting for that Splinter Cell remake, but
oh my god! I can't
but
wait.
even the Prince of Persia game they showed at the Ubisoft event, I thought was I thought it looked great. I'm actually
That's gonna be solid. That game. That's from the creator, the Rayman Legends team.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. So
and it's the kind of thing that. And it's the kind of thing that gives you confidence that eventually we'll get that Splinter Cell remake, right? The fact that they, they had to, pull Prince of Persia back out of development hell and kind of reassign it, but they're getting it done. They stuck with it. So hopefully, the Splinter Cell stuff will come down the pike too.
Splinter Cell.
Hey, Brett, before I let you go, I want to let you know that I missed this at the Nintendo conference, and I'm just now watching it. The Super Mario Brothers Wonder.
Oh, it's great.
Oh, it looks fantastic.
Yeah, it absolutely does. I was like, I was jumping out of my chair when I saw that. I'm like, yes.
This is why Nintendo has me all the time. Look what they're pulling. Look what they're doing. This is why art design is so much more important than graphical fidelity sometimes. Because look what you're doing with the Switch. This game looks like almost like a Pixar movie.
Oh,
it looks so good.
Yeah, no, it looks wonderful.
I'm super stoked.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'll let you close the show. I just want to say that.
I mean, it's gonna have. You can imagine it's probably gonna have solid gameplay mechanics. Yeah, it's just probably gonna be a really, really solid game. Yeah. Really solid game. So, but no, I do need to wrap up the show because I have to get to bed, unfortunately. But to do adult things in the morning. But first, I want to give a shout out to everyone in the live chat. Thank you everyone for hanging out with us tonight. Really appreciate it. Do me a favor, smash that like button. We have 132 people watching now, only 72 likes. If you're new, subscribe, hit the bell notification so you're alerted when we go live. But again, want to give a big shout out and thank you to everyone in the live chat. Really appreciate it as always. Big shout out to the panel here. Worry, thank you for joining us as always. Sorry to keep you waiting as well. I always feel bad when you jump in and you're waiting there. But I do appreciate you.
What am I doing? I'm just sitting here staring at a MacBook screen. No big deal.
but I do appreciate you coming on, man. Appreciate it as always.
Thank you.
And Worry, I don't know if you want to be found, but if you do, let everyone know where
I
you
will
can
be
find you.
in a half an hour. I will be over at Twitch on the Warrior Gamer streaming Final Fantasy 16 in glorious 30 frames per second in fidelity mode. If anybody wants to come over and check that out.
Yeah, no, I'm still waiting. I'm waiting on my physical copy to arrive. I might be giving up on that though.
Physical, you got that problem. You have to wait. I'm just gonna play it at 12 o'clock.
Yeah, I probably should have done that. I didn't think about it, but they got me on the Steel Case book, so couldn't pass that up. But anyhow, Worry, always a pleasure. Thank you again, and Basher, appreciate you coming on, man. First time guest. Thank you again for your time, man. I don't know if you want to be found, but if you do, let everyone know they can find you as well.
Oh yeah, sure. You can find me on Twitter at bbasher4 life, and then also at my YouTube channel Button Basher Gaming, where I do a podcast every Friday. Usually airs right after Crossfire, so I do my podcast then. And it's a pretty good podcast. Me and my buddy Vance and talk about games. And I too will be streaming Final Fantasy 16 after this, and I'm waiting till midnight like Warrior Warriors over here.
Oh man, maybe I should cancel my. I don't know. Anyhow.
Yeah.
Yeah, the thing is, I can't stay. Ryan Landis is like double dip BRAP. The thing is, I just can't stay up past midnight tonight. I got to get up early, so it wouldn't work out. But no, Basher, thank you again, man. Awesome having you on. Thank you for your time, man. I really appreciate it. Last but not least, Game Logic. I don't know if you want to be found, but if you do, let everyone know they can find you.
Yeah, man, sure. Folks can check me out over on the Enough to Keep Going weekly games podcast over on the E2KG Network podcasting channel on YouTube or SoundCloud or Spotify. I will not be streaming Final Fantasy on my channel, Rounding Off Infinity. So you'll have to go look at that somewhere else.
You can check it out on Warriors channel. Or I think Basher. I think you said you were streaming it too, right?
Yeah. I'm gonna be streaming it as well on my channel.
So. There you go. But all right. Well, everyone, enjoy the rest of the evening. Have fun playing Final Fantasy 16 for those who are going to pick it up at midnight. And we'll be back next week. May do a BRAP rant, perhaps later this week, maybe this weekend. Give me a follow at BRAP_podcast on Twitter. And other than that, we'll thank you again. We'll catch you next time.